Hello. It works.
Hello.
We are off and running. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Things work around here. That's a good start.
Look at that.
So back.
You get out of bed and you think, what's today going to be like? And then the next thing you know, you show up and things don't work. But today it works. Today's going to be a good day. Today's going to be a record
60.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 60 now. I thought it was at 50.
Oh,
And
no.
it went
Well,
up to 60.
so
Going up.
we are going after a record because that's what we do here in Omaha. We are record setters. That's what people say. People around the Big East and the Big Ten and the Summit League say, those people in Omaha, they are record setters. So we have a chance.
Maybe in different directions across those three different conferences. But yeah, record setters.
We are San Diego of the Big Ten. We used to be, and then friggin'
They actually added California.
Tony Petitti. But yeah, we're chasing record 60 today.
Ooh.
All right, so put on the shorts.
Yes.
No, thank you. But
Could I swing the clubs today?
ooh.
Or is it still a little bit too early?
I think, I mean,
Mhm.
obviously going and playing 18 holes is
Nonsense
out of the
if you can
question.
get in.
But hey, driving range, why not?
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
still swinging a golf
Stretch it
club.
out a little bit. If you have a favorite outdoor range, let's just try and cut that slice a little bit in half. Let's make sure we're getting our hands through the ball. Make sure we're exploding through the hips. We're getting that. If you're a lefty like me, you're getting that left hand. You're turning that all the way around, getting the club face.
Hello,
Face.
Bones. Where are we going here?
Wow.
Getting the club face right to the square of the ball, and then make sure we're exploding here and make sure we're not dipping. We got a good base. I say all this, and I'm like a 93 golfer, so it's just like I don't even know what I'm talking
Point
about.
is, it's going to be 60
Yeah,
and
no.
sunny today.
I'm. You know what?
January.
I like people that golf. I don't care what your score is. I just like people that golf. You
Me
don't need to
too.
say that. You're shooting your weight. Now, if I was shooting my weight, that'd be a bad day, and probably no one would ever want to play with me.
I was about to say, if
No.
I was shooting my weight, we'd be in a bad.
Yeah.
I'm a vibe guy. Like I'm lucky enough where I'm friends with people who are good at golf,
Mhm.
and they like to take me to nice courses
Aw.
because I am a positive human to play with.
Okay.
you know? Like
Attitude is
I'm
everything.
I'm a high vibe guy. In the
People
course.
want Matt around.
Okay, so you're like
I get
the
that.
you're like the 12th guy on the bench who is like pat
Yes.
everybody on the back.
Great
and go, hey,
locker room
great job."
guy.
But I know
You're
too
the
that
fired up guy during timeouts. Iowa State has a guy like that.
Team guy.
Who's like Mr. He doesn't play very much,
sure,
but he's like Mr. Energy guy, Mr. Positivity guy.
need that.
And the fans like him, and the students go nuts if he gets to check into the game. Maybe that's what you're like on
Yeah.
playing with a foursome.
on the
You're like,
foursome.
not very good. I'll skip, if we're playing a scramble, I'll skip a couple holes. But you know what? Hey, good job.
Yeah.
Good job, good
Well,
effort.
I got
Well,
6
I
fouls
think
to
the
give.
biggest thing though, is Gary, is that I know that if you have a crap shot,
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and butter you
You're going
up.
to be like, hey, man, it'll
Hey,
get better.
no,
You got another
no.
swing coming up.
No, if you come into the cart and you're all pissed off and you're like, oh, this, you're complaining about it. I'm like, I know. Why was that bunker there? It was terrible.
Here's a
why
drink.
was that?
Why was that tree in the middle of the course?
Exactly. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a good shot. You'll be fine.
Why did that
Good shot.
squirrel take my ball?
Exactly.
That's
It's
a
all
hype
about
guy. I
vibes.
love it.
All about vibes. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
I pull out the fireball shooters from the bag, and then, we get it going.
So you're
Everybody
just
loves
the
it.
entertainment committee when we play golf. You don't play
Exactly.
golf very well, but like to
Well,
have
very
a,
well relative
have
to
a-
people who play. Like I break 100. Like I keep up on the course. Like
Oh.
I'll have my good shots. I'll have my good drives.
But he's the
it's
minister
just
of morale.
Relative to like,
I like that phrase.
yeah,
Mhm.
Mr. Morale, Mr. Mick Morale, if you will.
Mick Morale, the minister of
Okay.
Mick Morale.
I like the minister of morale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had
I am the minister of morale.
we
on the
had
golf course.
in my previous job in baseball, because we worked under the Mike Veck umbrella, we had a director of fun.
Yeah,
That was actually
you
a
go, Matt.
position
Yeah,
in our office
director
was a
of fun.
director of fun.
and that's what I am.
You
On
should
the
put
golf
down the
course,
website
I am.
here.
I am the director of fun. I am making sure that the vibes are high, that we're not breaking clubs, that we're not throwing them into the pond.
We're having a good day.
We're having a good day. We're all
Laughs.
having our drinks. You know what? When the real scratch golfers are up on the tee and we're on
Yeah.
the 10th hole, I go, all right, 4 transfusions. Who wants hot dogs? Okay, that's what I am. All right, I'm making sure they're teeing off. I'm running back. I got them. Here you go, boys. Here you go. Oh yeah, I'll tee off. Like we'll find it. It's out there.
I feel better.
What'd you
now.
call the dogs?
Hot dogs.
What you call them? What'd you call them?
Was it
Transfusion.
Transfusions that's a drink on the golf
Oh.
course. It's a golf drink.
I did not know that.
It's also
I don't
a
know
blood
what-
I
drink
played
in
a
the
lot of golf.
hospital.
Now I'm very interested. What is in this drink? I think you're talking about hot dogs. I think you're talking about a grease missile on the turn.
So a transfusion drink is a vodka, ginger ale, grape juice, and lime juice.
I'm out.
You had me
Okay.
until
I'm
grape
out.
juice.
I'm not a ginger ale guy.
Okay.
no?
That's
I
interesting.
probably
that
put,
is
I probably
the-
put it on my birth certificate. I'm not a ginger ale guy.
Why put it on your license? Why would you put it on your birth certificate? Who the hell's seen your birth certificate since you were born?
No, there's a lot of places you have to produce your birth certificate.
Like the DMV?
Like your job.
Like
Sometimes.
a lot of different places that I'm involved with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair enough then.
I mean, I don't know if you know what's going on right now, but it's kind of important to
Sure.
have that birth
identification.
certificate. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Certify
Yeah.
where you were born.
Yeah. I never looked at my birth certificate until about 20 years ago when I was applying for where I was working at a job.
Same.
And when you are born in the state of Iowa, it says live birth.
Good to know.
That's what it said at the top. And I'm
Congratulations. Live
I'm like,
birth.
As opposed to an unalive
I don't know.
birth?
Well, I'm glad
heard
that
it here
I'm
first.
glad that I wasn't a sea monkey.
As as opposed to like a theatrical production?
Not sure. I perused it. Yeah.
But-
And that was about it.
No, I'm surprised though that of all the things in a transfusion, ginger ale is what you're out on. I would assume it would be the grape juice or the vodka.
Oh, I don't mind grape juice.
Okay.
I don't mind
it's,
vodka.
It's not a regular. Vodka and lemonade.
Well, you got vodka and lime in here.
Today would be a great day to
I'll
drink
get
vodka
look, hey,
outside.
3 transfusions and I'll get you a John Daly. You know?
Mm,
You know what John Daly.
I like to bring my own. Rob says the transfusions are delicious.
They're so good.
Okay.
They're incredible.
You had me
How have I never heard of
this
this?
this is like, but this is why
Maybe I play with people that know that I don't like ginger ale.
maybe you do. That would be very high quality if you were to play with people who would know a very niche thing like that about you.
Matt, the one time of the year
Uh,
that I go out, can I order this at a bar?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never ordered
doesn't
it
hit
at
the same.
anywhere
But the
other
golf
than
course?
the course.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of.
So
a
I'll just have to
golf
rely on you
course.
to make it.
Now I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody, but to my knowledge, I know that it's mainly just a golf course
Okay.
thing. I've never seen anyone order it outside of a golf.
Because we would
course.
go to similar
There-
establishments.
I think you should give it a shot. I think you would love it. It's a great drink. It is a great drink, and like it's nice and
Put
refreshing
it
on
on
a
the
hot
board.
on a hot day, right? When you're out there, it's like 85. It's not a
Yeah.
dry heat. It's
Or
a little
60.
sticky, Transfusion, get you going.
It'll be on my list because this is the year that I complete. So I've tried to play every course in the Omaha metro area.
Okay.
So I have 6 more courses to go, and with Corey Oaks opening up again, I put that back on the list. So I will put this on the board.
Yeah.
To try. Welcome in everybody. We're off and running on a Tuesday. Could be a record-setting Tuesday. Someday
Already
we're going to
learned
pay.
something.
We're going to pay for this weather. We paid for it last.
Well, I was
spring.
about to say
last spring
already-
and summer.
we paid for it last week. It was -20.
That's nothing.
Yeah, but that's the Midwest.
Pay for it during the College World
you,
Series.
You never lived anywhere else. You're used to it.
No, yes, that is true. Doesn't mean I don't like it.
But we're gonna pay for this. Everybody says that. Like the state tournaments this year just be like mounds
Miserable.
and mounds of
Yeah.
snow. Coming up on the show, Sam McEwen will stop by at 7:30. Today is the
Today.
last day you can enroll at Nebraska for the spring semester.
Mhm.
If you have a kid or that's thinking about going to UNL or any other place, but in this particular case UNL, Nebraska has a visitor on campus. Will they reel him in? Will they have a Spindler's List?
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
a good
Nice.
one.
Thank you. I've been working on that one
Yeah.
all night long. I
When
stayed
did
up.
that one come to you?
Probably about after watching Caleb Love drain a 55-foot three to tie the game and
I'm-
send Arizona Iowa State to overtime.
that was the greatest shot that I've seen live.
Oh,
that I've seen
gonna say.
live. That I
Oh,
was
really?
live watching. The only one that I can think of on top of that is when Kawhi Leonard sent home the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, for Toronto in the corner.
Toronto
Yeah.
in the corner.
And now his knees are
But-
sending him home.
Yeah. And
Couldn't
then
happen to a better guy.
that's a good one.
Oh.
But then like
Bitter Spurs
the
fan.
two shots that
Bitter.
immediately came to my mind was the Kawhi shot and the Kyrie shot
Mm.
in the 2016 NBA Finals.
The one last night was kind of odd. It was a weird night in college basketball.
It
but,
was.
But Sam, who's got basketball takes, will join us at 7:30. He does. Sam likes to talk basketball.
Sam's got all the takes.
He does. He actually has 2 Twitter accounts, and one of them's not even a burner. It's like a
Oh,
real
I
one.
did know that. I did know that.
Brian Christopherson stops by at 9:00. So last night, it's the day after the championship weekend for the NFL, and people are jonesing to watch some sports last night. There was a lot of NBA. There was some really good NBA last night. How about my Miami Heat and my Beam team? We went 2-0 last night.
back.
Screw you, Jimmy Butler. You
Okay.
can't pull a Costanza on the Heat. But college basketball last night was crazy. Where do you want to start with the college basketball on the open night after the championship
Ooh.
weekend? Because it was kind of what college basketball. I know you've alluded to it. college basketball has had a really good year,
It has.
but there's still a lot more people that don't watch until March. And if you're that person, I'm sorry, you're missing something, because last night we had the start of the night. And oh, by the way, Iowa lost.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to Iowa State wearing black, lost at the McHale Center in Tucson. Great atmosphere last night. But the night started with John Rothstein upset that they delayed the Duke North Carolina State game on ESPN. John Rothstein was losing his mind.
Really?
On Twitter. So because
I did not see this.
the TGL was going on and it went late because it went to overtime.
Yeah.
So there must be an obligation
to
not move it, do anything like that, because it's Tiger's deal. And you had Tiger and Rory last night. So that goes into overtime.
And they were on SVP, Tiger and Rory.
Free golf.
So they delayed the start of the Duke North Carolina State game on Big ESPN last night. Rothstein is on Twitter and he is losing his mind. He's not a golfer. He has no idea golf terms, whatever. And he is tweeting like up a storm.
I've never played golf, so why is this on my TV instead of Duke NC State? Inconceivable. Vizini, the Princess Bride, circa 1987. It's 8:35 Eastern time, and golf is still on my TV instead of Duke NC State. The Blue Devils have an inside track to be a number 1 seed, and we've got to deal with this nonsense. I don't even know the rules for golf. I just heard once that par or something is 72. I've never played golf. I've never had a glass of wine. I've never had a cup of coffee. I've never been to Hawaii. I'm 41. I don't intend to start now. And then people were getting on him, and then he posted Harvey
Specter.
And he
or
got
not Harvey Specter.
Or Harvey what's his name?
Harvey Grant.
I've watched way too much Suits.
Harvey Dent.
By the way,
either
Suits LA looks like it might be a banger.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, coming
Add
up in
that to our
February.
list.
Is Harvey in it?
No, he's referenced in it.
Okay.
But I don't know. Does Harvey and Mike Ross come back?
Do you know Axelrod?
David Axelrod?
Axelrod is like another alternate.
I thought you were talking about the political guy.
It's like
That's what I
another
thought,
TV show going on at the same time
Okay.
as Suits, but it's about like a hedge fund, to my knowledge. I don't know for sure, but I know that it's also like, it's also been, I've seen more and more clips of it, a little bit like Suits. Anyway, Rothstein posted you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I hope golf
And
stayed
then
on
the
till
game
10.
started, and that was that. That is crazy, by the way.
So it does start, and Cooper Flag is as advertised.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he had 28. I am still working on, I got to see him in person. And so that's why I want Omaha to make the NCAA tournament, because Omaha actually might be playing Duke, and that would be my
That'd be awesome.
that'd be my chance
be
to see
sick.
Cooper Flag in person. No, I don't know how sick that would be, but it would be sick if Omaha got a 16 seed, went to Dayton and won.
Yeah.
So then
Get a
you're
win.
like, hey, we're playing with house money,
Yeah.
and I get to see Cooper Flag. But so there were two things in that game last night, and
one of them has happened to me before.
you go to the Final Four and you disappear, like North Carolina State. Hey, that's a discussion in college basketball. Is outside of like the Blue Bloods and the well-known programs that have gone to the Final Four and they kind of stick around, look at some of the lesser-known programs that have gone to the Final Four recently that have fallen off the map.
Yeah.
FAU lost Dusty May, so they're back playing in their high school gym.
Butler.
Rest in peace.
Butler, even Loyola
Miami.
a little bit. VCU, Miami, North Carolina State.
Yep.
So the only one that went
South Carolina a little
no,
bit.
South Carolina is distant. No, people don't even remember that South Carolina went to the Final Four.
I don't.
The only one that kind of sticks around is San Diego State. But the lesser known teams that have made the Final Four in the last 10, 15 years, like fall off the map. So watching North Carolina State last night, but I'm watching Duke. So two things happened in that game. I'm going to say that both probably have happened to you.
No, only one. Only one.
So a Duke player gets chopped in the cookies, and he throws up on the floor during the game. So there is a foul away from where he is at, but he's doubled over. And Dave O'Brien, who we'll get to something else that he did that I'm sure ESPN's got an apology coming this morning. He's doubled over. They think the foul happened there. It happened away from that. But the Duke player is doubled over, and he threw up on the floor. So there is, and I know people are going to have the reflex when I say this word because I do as well. So there is vomit on the floor at
Yeah.
Cameron Indoor. And instead of what we all did when we were in grade school, or at least what they did at St. Pius X, the janitor, you throw the
salt.
sawdust.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
They still do
they-
that.
hey, so like when you're in grade school and it's that time of the year and people are getting sick and you got all, young kids, everybody had that turn where, oh my God, I can't make it to the bathroom. I throw up in the hall.
Yeah.
So you'd walk by when you were changing classes and the sawdust would be on the floor and oh yeah, somebody threw up.
Somebody did it.
Somebody was out late last night.
I mean, they weren't going to bring sawdust out to the floor, but I don't think they were prepared to clean
For
up
vomit.
vomit because there is a solution that you can spray, but all of a sudden there's like 45 towels on the floor and they have a delay in this game. So have you thrown up on a basketball court?
I've thrown up in a game before. I threw up on the ice before. I got
okay.
hit real bad in the stomach. I got bad acid reflux,
Mm-hmm.
and I turn over, and I'm like, my head is facing the ice, and just cough, throw up, and like I get up, and everyone, you just hear the shush of the crowd when they see there's throw up just on the ice after like through my mask.
I'm
I
good.
have
was
to
out
be
till
like
4.
embarrassingly escorted into the locker room. Now, how they cleaned
Yeah.
it up was they just had dudes just start like chalking
Skating
up
through.
ice on it.
Yeah,
Like-
and I've seen that.
like,
Like they do that with blood as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just started grinding like the ice and like getting the
Yeah.
ice over it, and so it was this like brown gloop, and then they would like one kid, God bless his soul,
Good morning,
Just-
everybody.
Yeah.
just scooped it up with his stick and they started putting it in a
Yeah.
trash can, and that was that. And then I got made fun of for the rest of the season about it.
Wow.
Oh, and
Made fun of? You got hit.
I'm not done with the Duke game yet.
Oh yeah,
Also,
go ahead.
in the Northeastern game last night, they had to delay the game because a cheerleader was bleeding on the floor.
Oh.
Last week the Iowa
I was about to say the Iowa. What's going
the
on?
Iowa male cheerleader had a bad tumble. He's okay.
Great.
But last night they had a Northeastern cheerleader bleeding on the floor, so they had to delay the game there. So back to Cameron Indoor, and I mean this game was bizarro world because Duke was behind. They came back. They eventually beat North Carolina State. The ACC is
They were
mean-
a 20-point favorite in that game, too.
well. Vegas has some because Arizona was a 2.5-point favorite against Iowa State last
yeah,
night.
we'll talk about that.
So shortly after they delay the game for the Duke player that had thrown up, there is an incident in the student section. And if you've ever been to Cameron Indoor, I mean,
It's warm.
You are packed in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's warm. You're shoulder to shoulder, and especially in the student section. And so a young female student had passed out. But here's where I think ESPN's got some splaining to do.
Uh-oh.
Because they show her.
yeah.
So they show the whole incident of the students that are around this young lady in Durham last night. They part ways so that the medical personnel and security can get to her. And then ESPN, they started out with the shot of the Duke huddle and Dave O'Brien, because you've got a producer and a director and they're in your ear. He said there's some commotion going on in the student section. And, they don't show people that run on the field during sporting events. But for some reason, the camera pans to the student section and you see this, and she was passed out.
She's limp.
She was a noodle. So they pick her up and you can clearly see her face. You see her whole body. There is a security guard that picks her up, and then there's somebody else that comes and they carry her out. But ESPN is showing the whole thing. I imagine today that ESPN will apologize for that because somebody messed up royally. I mean, you can't be showing
You
that
cannot be.
because you could clearly see her face, and she was out. Now,
It was a little
unnerving.
by the way, a little unnerving, like, especially if you're like, because I was a kid growing up where
Only
I didn't
Stephen A.
like to
can make it
see the
worse.
whole just people in ailment type
Mhm.
deal. Like, it was a little unnerving to see a human being just fully knocked out, just
Yeah.
out of it, eyes rolled back, multiple people helping her up. Like, it was,
It's like Tua.
I don't know, it changed, like, it changes the vibe of the stadium, but it shouldn't change the vibe of my broadcast that I'm watching from my home.
Well-
And it did. Like, I I go, oh my God, that's terrible.
I'm imagining, Dave O'Brien is a really, really good broadcaster. They messed up in the truck
Yeah.
because they should have never shown
No.
that. So
You could have left it. There's a commotion in the student
but
section.
then it was
Check
kind of
on
like,
that.
okay. And then with Carolina State made a run and it's like tight and you're like, okay, we just had some weird stuff happen. So that whole thing was weird. And then if you stayed up last night late, so a Monday night in the Big 12, God, bring back Big Monday, please.
I know.
I mean, back in the day, we had the Big East and the Big 12/Big 8 going on a Monday night and they owned it. But now ESPN doesn't have Big East. But Big Monday was like appointment viewing. Hell, Saturday was 38 years ago that Send It in Jerome happened on a Big Monday game. But you get
Do they not call it Big Monday anymore?
I don't think they.
No.
I mean, they only have like
into
5 of them
No,
now.
because they don't have a regular.
They start.
They
so
don't have a
late.
regular schedule on Monday nights until about now.
Yeah.
Tuesdays, though.
Well,
So-
Tuesdays used to be Big Ten.
Super Tuesday.
Big Ten ACC, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then you'd
So-
have a good ACC
So
game on Wednesday.
I've been talking about this last couple, like Tuesdays have been awesome, and just in terms of sports and college basketball over the last 3 weeks. Today's a little now, so I think a lot of the games that would have
Yeah.
been played today were played yesterday in terms of the
Ooh,
schedule.
you still got bangers tonight.
Oh,
Big
we
Blue
have
is in Knoxville.
Battle of
Salas
Omaha.
against Chucky Hepburn.
Battle of Omaha and ACC, Tennessee,
Yeah.
Kentucky. I'm excited.
So
Anyway,
you had Big 12 and you had Iowa State wearing black again.
I don't like that. I don't.
Neither do
I
some
don't
of them.
like that black has become the color of every team. Like every team's got a black jersey. Every team can wear an alternate that's black. I'm not a fan. Stick
So he's out on the
stick to
94
your
Huskers.
no. I have no problem with alternate jerseys.
Basketball?
Just stick to your colors. Like why not have
Hey.
just an all yellow
Hey.
Iowa State jersey? Or
I was
something
at
like
that game. They when they pulled out black to wear in Hilton Coliseum, I was elated. Now, I like the periodical black that Nebraska wears, like baseball and volleyball, and I would even take some basketball. But Iowa State, the whole
That's all
athletic
they
teams
wear.
have leaned into wearing black, and it seems like they wear black
gray,
in their
too.
biggest games. So they're wearing black last night, and interesting game again. Arizona was a 2.5-point favorite, unranked against the number 3 team in the country.
I'm trying to find if that's ever happened before.
I'm sure it
has.
has, but Vegas knows. So this is a weird game, and Iowa State, Iowa State is battling an injury. One of their sharpshooters is out, but they're still finding a way to win. They're still Iowa State. So end of the game, down by 3. Caleb Love, who the Caleb Love experience would make me throw up if I was on a roller coaster. Man, as a player, he's a weird thing. So he's 1 for 11 from the floor last night.
Of course,
And
he is.
Arizona inbounds, and he's about 55 feet away, under 3 seconds to go, foul or no foul. They don't foul, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Caleb Love hits the shot to send it into overtime. And including that shot in overtime, and once they got to overtime, Arizona just
It
rolled.
was done.
He went 3 for 3, and Arizona knocks off Iowa State late last night in Tucson. But I didn't have I know it becomes a debate of should you foul at 3. The chances of Caleb Love in the game that he was having last night to hit a shot like that. Now it was a straight on 55-footer. It's not like he was on the side of the floor along the sidelines. He was kind of like in the middle
He
of the
was
floor.
fading a little bit though. Like,
But still, I wouldn't have fouled.
Oh no!
Right.
I mean, I was okay. And
55 feet.
Otzelberger got asked about it a lot in the post game, but just a crazy night of college basketball.
What also too, Joshua Jefferson of Iowa State had 2 free throws before that happened to make it a 4-point game. He ended up going 1 of 2, and so that why it was a 3-point game to begin with. I've never seen anything like that because I was watching that game. I was like, oh, Love just can't knock anything down, and then not only he hits that half court, not more than a half court shot, by the way, and then goes into overtime and just absolute heater.
Yep.
Ends up having 4 threes on the night. Arizona, man, they've been on one heck. They had a terrible non-con. They went 6-5 in the non-con. Since then, they've gotten 8-1 in the conference. It's a team that I think they've beaten 3 ranked teams.
Yeah, what are they?
before.
They're second in the Big 12 now?
Yes. And they beat 3 ranked. They beat Baylor a little bit ago, and then they beat Arizona yesterday, and then they had beaten West Virginia and Cincinnati, who were both ranked at the time before that, after they had gone 6-5 in the non-con. Now, their non-con was Wisconsin, Duke, Oklahoma, I guess West Virginia, not non-con, but UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had played good teams and hadn't beaten them. They will certainly be ranked now. You got to think after the absolute great run that they've been in the Big 12. So kudos to them. Hey, that Arizona
like
was
McHale.
rocking yesterday.
Yeah.
That stadium.
It's
with a hell of an
It's
atmosphere.
a beautiful
man.
arena.
You've
Yeah.
done a game there, right?
Yeah,
I
it's,
have.
Timmy, Timmy Lloyd's got that whole.
I like Tucson a lot.
Same.
But that
Should have
they're-
gone to school there.
so the McHale Center, again, great atmosphere. They love basketball there.
Mhm.
they have on their exterior like a tribute to all the great Arizona players that have played there. And
Oh,
it's
that's
really, really
awesome.
cool. It's kind of like Allen Fieldhouse where you walk down memory lane. You can do the same thing in Tucson. I love that building. It's great to watch basketball. You sit right on top of the court.
Mhm.
It was fun last night. Wasn't fun for Iowa State, who got beat by Caleb Love. Caleb Love is such a weird player. Also,
Tommy Lloyd, by the way, I know this isn't like a hot take or anything like that, but has been and continues to be one of the best coaches in America.
they'd gone through a little patch. He's a hell of a recruiter.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
Hey, if they get hot down the stretch, though,
I mean, that's a program that once Lute Olson showed up from Iowa, man, Arizona basketball, that in that town, that is everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They
Really?
Arizona basketball is monstrous in that town.
Shout out Sean
I
Elliott.
mean, they cover Arizona basketball in the Tucson market like we cover Nebraska football. Like their media contingent that goes on the road, and they don't have they don't have a large one because of that
Really?
market. Oh,
Wow.
It's everything is basketball.
Mhm.
I mean, they are
I did not know that.
they are dialed in.
Yeah, it's basketball
there.
first
That's
there.
sick.
Also, this will make Nebraska fans feel good. UCLA won their 4th in a row last night. They beat USC
Oh.
on the road. Mick Cronin. There you go. They prepared by going 2 times around the Statue of Liberty.
Mhm.
They have turned their season around.
That was another weird game where they controlled it for most of it, and that at the very end of it, USC came back, and I think for a second, I thought that USC was going to be able to sneak away with one, and then they made some big shots down.
It was a
down the
boring
stretch.
game.
It was a boring
I
game.
mean, what, 82-76, but it was a boring game.
Yeah, Sebastian Mack made a massive three-pointer on the other end to extend that lead to 4.
I'm
and then
sure
a couple free throws down the end.
people were elated that game was played on a Monday night in LA. Welcome to the
yeah.
Big Ten.
Yeah, get rid. Yeah,
Also, Steve Forbes will be jonesing for the Iowa job this morning. You might get an email from him and say, hey, can you throw my name out there? Because Iowa lost last night as well. All right.
they didn't just lose. They got their butts whooped last night.
Well, I mean, who gave up more? Did Iowa basketball give up more to Ohio State in the second half? They gave up 52 than Iowa football has given up to Ohio State in a while.
That's funny.
Some guy immediately emailed me last night in the Equitable Bank inbox, and he goes, hey, did you know Ben McCollum is from Iowa City?
Oh, I did not know.
You know Ben McCollum? Head coach at Drake.
Good coach.
Won titles at Northwest Missouri State. Drake is 17-2. Him
Oh
taking
yeah, they're
over for
killing. No, I think they're
Darren
18-2. I think they're 18-2 now. I have them in my NCAA tournament college basketball pool, where it's like
Excuse me?
So you pick 3 teams
Weekly?
No. So at the beginning of the year, you pick 3 teams. You pick a Power 5 team, a non-Power 5 team, and a Group of 5 team.
Mhm.
Okay. And so then my 3 teams are Alabama, St. Joe's, and Drake.
Okay.
And so
Smart play on the Drake.
basically it's 6 dudes. We have a buy-in, and then whoever's team gets the farthest in the tournament is the winner of the pool.
I like that.
Yeah. So
You like to gamble.
no, I mean these
Yeah,
are
you
these
I was
are-
gonna say he's
you like-
become.
Yeah.
I want to clarify this
You
because
have a
I know
problem?
people were no
you
because
can't have a
Do
problem.
you need an 800 number?
because I like to I don't even gamble up to my means. I barely gamble any of my means. Like I've
all start.
talked to you
What does that
before.
mean?
Yeah.
I've talked to you before about
I'll
how
just put
I
one
Gary,
how
can,
I
can you help me?
No.
Can you spot me
No.
a hundy?
I got
like-
a 14-team parlay.
What's your access to your FanDuel app?
first off, I only gamble during the football season. Like
Uh-huh.
when the football season's done,
I
I'm
only
not
drink
really
the days
placing
that end
any
in Y.
bets.
I don't know. I'm guessing that
Okay.
you've. I'm listening to you. You don't just gamble during the football season.
But I know
you're like
football
50
the
kids
best
to
in terms of
$50 to
gambling. In
Smells
terms
kid.
of like
Picks his
putting my
nose.
money on things, I know college football and NFL football to the point where I'm confident enough to gamble. I
Mhm.
am not confident enough to gamble in the MLB or the NBA or the NHL
Well,
or
never,
anything like that.
Never. Don't touch the NBA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
The
learned that.
The
from him.
NBA is nah.
Secondly, I love pools. I love like the $10 pools and forget about it. Beginning of the season pools and forget about it. Or like this little Royal Rumble pool that I'm in.
Mhm.
$10, a nice little thing. I get to root for something during the event I'm going to be watching anyway.
How do you
But
keep
then
up?
like, during the week, like I place about like $30 worth of bets. That's all I do. Just 30. Now, when I go to the casino, like I'm playing at the $5 to $10 table at blackjack. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's just I gamble very little amounts. I just do it a lot. Not do
Okay.
it a lot. I do it a decent amount.
I don't do drugs. Just do a little bit, Jim, and do it a lot.
Jim, it's
Here we go.
There we go, Jim. It's just one.
Uh,
It's one stogie, Jim. It's not that much.
Texter Brandon, who is involved with building large casinos in foreign countries. That's true.
Nice.
It is true. Man needs to take me to Dubai.
That's awesome.
He says nothing wrong with fun. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
like fun.
putting the mortgage or putting my rent on the over-under of Memphis versus West Virginia in the Scooters Bowl, okay? Like, I'm like, oh.
Could have won some money.
You
With
know.
it.
Did it hit?
It did.
Take the over?
It did hit, actually.
See?
But, it's just one of those things where I like, oh, hey, I like that game. Like, I'm confident in that game. I'll put $10 on it. Or our boy, Brian Edwards comes up on here, and he's been great. And he'll give us picks, and I go, I trust Brian, and so I tail Brian, and I win tailing Brian a lot. Not this week; we had a rough week together, but
I like Connor was telling you yesterday. I can't wait for the first day you meet Mike. Mike would probably have a moment with you.
I know I gamble. I'm an incredible. You know this.
Mike will be waiting for you in the lobby of
Gary.
NRG at 10 this morning.
Gary, you know that I'm an incredibly responsible gambler. You know my units. You know what I bet, and you know how I bet.
He even has the lingo.
You can speak. You can end this whole conspiracy right now.
It's like those shows in the 90s.
You
for
know
30
I am a
minutes.
responsible gambler.
Yeah, I mean, I was uncomfortable with the guy that was waiting next to your car when we walked out yesterday.
A toothpick in his mouth.
I mean, that was a little bit tough.
He had the pinky ring
And how-
then the
Beanie,
wrist chain.
And how you tell me that you leave your door open so they can slide stuff into your glove box.
yeah, that's my picks.
Yeah.
I got an envelope that said that the orange crop will actually survive through the summer, and so it's gonna be really good.
I'd hope the orange
Oh,
crops
your
survive
mom's
this
going to
summer.
step in and cut you off. That allowance is going to stop.
What do you
Let me
mean he's
tell you
moving
something
back
right
to
now. I don't-
Chicago? What happened?
My parents don't listen to the show anymore. They listen for a good 6 episodes, and now I give them a call, and they're like, "Was it good today?"
Are you
I'm
still
like,
working there? How's
yeah.
Gary?
Yeah. No, seriously. That's how's Gary? He's good. He's fine. Is he being nice?
Is he tired of you
He's being nice.
You
yet?
should ask. I asked about your parents earlier today. I
Yeah,
hope they were doing well.
they're doing great.
That is awesome to hear.
Dad's in Philly.
All right, 39 past the hour. Coming up in less than an hour, Sam McEwen stops by on a Tuesday edition of Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, listen every morning to this show like you're doing right
Hey.
now. Yes. For a chance to win $100, all you have to do is call in and correctly guess what the game audio is from. What are you talking about? Well, find out. More details online. 1620thezone.com.
All right, welcome back in. Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone, wherever you may consume the program. I have decided, thanks to
It got in your head. You went all Belichick.
Keegan's wife on the stream, I'm having a bad hair day. Like, my hair is trash. Like, I told you guys, I walked in, I said, this might be the day that I shave my head. Like, I mean, it's going the wrong way. I got a party in the back, and I got nothing in the front.
Hey, dude, mine's going the wrong way too right now.
Don't even start.
You got time.
You
yeah.
got thick.
It
Do you
looks
want
my
beautiful.
hat? Do you want
You're
my
22 years old. Stop.
hat? Do you want my hat?
Stop. No, stop.
No,
You got
we want your
you got-
hair.
You got good hair. You got good hair. I got bad hair. I blame my grandpa, my dad, my neighbor. I think.
When your neighbor.
I don't know if something happened. I don't know. But this might be the day that I go to Great Clips and say, let's get rid of it.
Are
So,
they- are
if
they-
people are watching on TV, I'm going hoodie up because what I did, I made the mistake this morning, so I'm wearing a hoodie. And so I did my hair up all nice and stuff.
Then you put
And then I put the hoodie on
No,
and it screwed up my hair. Yeah.
no.
So I'm going to be, don't be alarmed or anything like I'm getting ready to do something illegal.
Can
I'm
you
just going hoodie up.
can
It's
you
hoodie
just
up
say-
Tuesday.
Can you just say we're on to Cincinnati?
No, because we're
or
on to Philadelphia.
or no, you will die. Look a little Palpatine. It's a little
if I
Palpatine.
could get no color in my face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little and then we really do up the lips, like get them nice and
Yeah.
red.
I'm having a bad.
You can look like Dwight from Halloween. That's what you look like. You wouldn't look like Palpatine. You
Yeah.
look like Dwight.
So for people that are tuning in, this is the way it's going to be. I'll try and adjust. I'll go into the makeup room at the top of the hour. Has Nebraska football ever had a guy named Rocco? Has there ever been a Rocco that has played for Nebraska? Because maybe by the end of today, Nebraska will have a Rocco. So Rocco Spindler is visiting Nebraska today. He is the Notre Dame offensive lineman.
You related to Mark Spindler?
He is not.
Oh.
But Rocco will be in Lincoln today. He is in the portal from Notre Dame. Now, he's not just a backup offensive lineman in Notre Dame. He found a way to start this year at right guard in the back half of the season. But he's on campus today, and he's not a tackle. Everybody okay with that? He's not a tackle. Oh, you about jumped on that. Nebraska has a guard on campus. He's not a tackle. Timing is everything. Nebraska today, this is the cutoff day. You have to be enrolled. If you're going to be here for the spring, you got to be enrolled. So today is like the day. If he leaves Lincoln, then Michigan and Indiana are in play. He's already been to Indiana.
Yeah.
Michigan was the runner-up in his recruitment when he chose Notre Dame. But I think I was, for the first time in my illustrious post-going-to-school career, I've looked up calendars. So I think Michigan has the same deadline today that if you're going to be there for, i.e. spring football, you got to be enrolled today. So if he's coming to Nebraska,
There might be
he's saying yes today. It would be my
there could be
thinking?
different rules though, because and might be so stupid it may not matter, but he's from Michigan. So I don't know. Maybe Michigan has like an in-student, like in
you got to
like
pass.
from state in-state enrollment rule or something like that. I don't know. Everything that I've read is that if he doesn't commit today or he leaves today without enrolling, that he's on to Michigan,
Mhm.
and he already visited Indiana. So if we're going off of PFF, okay, because I
Oh,
just think
God.
that I just think that's the best. We haven't seen this guy play all. He played 13 of the 16 games for Notre Dame. And so he would have the third highest PFF grade overall. 70, I think it's 71 run block, 70 pass block. Or sorry, opposite. So it's 72 pass block, 70 run block. He's got a 70.5 PFF grade. It would rank 3 out of the starting 5 amongst Nebraska. Now, one of those guys, Bryce Benhart, who had the highest PFF grade of 73.6, he's graduated.
Aren't those numbers similar to like Lutovsky?
So Lutovsky has a 73 overall PFF passing grade or overall PFF grade. Justin Evans has a 68 overall PFF grade. Now, my guess is that previous to him playing guard, Justin Jenkins at the time, now Justin Evans, was actually the backup center. So I think that if I had to guess here, Evans could play center.
Mhm.
You'd have Latovsky at one guard, Spindler at the other guard, and then Pritchett and Gunnar Gatula. That would be the current outlook
Now-
of the Nebraska offensive line.
So I do know if your love of PFF, have you renewed your subscription yet? So we can
I
benefit
actually
from that?
I cancel my subscription. I cancel at the end of football season.
Because he's got to gamble. He needs more income, more money. Makes
True.
sense.
Good point.
Something's got to be
I
sacrificed.
think his numbers, if I remember correctly, I was reading a Michigan article. He would be the top run blocking lineman at Michigan this past
Ooh,
year. If you
okay.
go off simply PFF.
Yeah,
So I just want to, he's not a tackle. He's not a tackle,
but he's good.
but he's a guard. And Nebraska, I don't know. Nebraska appears to be in a good spot in the interior. It's on the outside. Now, don't forget about Sam Sledge. I agree with you about Justin Evans. So Justin Evans primarily has played guard, but you're right. He can play backup center, and Nebraska really hasn't needed a backup center. Ben Scott held that position down. I think at guard, you got to have some ox strength.
Yeah.
I don't think Evans is as strong as need be for a Big Ten offensive guard. So playing center might be the right move for him. But don't forget about Sam Sledge. Don't forget about Sam Sledge.
So then we
forget about Lutovsky because the kid's been here forever.
we get into this conversation now, Gary, about you're in the fourth year of Donovan Raiola being the offensive line coach, and he's now had some of these younger guys that he's recruited that you'd think he'd be able to mold and develop and get ready to play at the Big Ten level.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you have to, you not have to, but you want to stop doing the 1-year transfer Band-Aids or 2-year transfer Band-Aids and actually see these guys who you've recruited, who you've developed, go out there and play football. Now, offensive lineman, and it goes without saying, is absolutely the last position you want to put out a freshman coming in from high school at. I mean, and I think that's part of the reason why Nebraska has struggled a bit on the offensive line over the last couple of years is because they've been forced to play guys at a really, really young age right out of high school, which
Previous regime. Yes.
which have stunted their growth. You've been able to, at this point, sort of avoid that with Machacek, with Sam Sledge. You know, Bricks didn't have to play last year. Tomoa didn't have to play last year. And so you're able to develop. Now, at some point, though, you do want to see these younger guys that Raiola has been able to sink his teeth into and has been able to develop and recruit play. But this guy, so you said, oh, does it matter that he's not a tackle? You saw me wince a little bit because I'm like, you still want another tackle, but the guys played high-level football on the offensive line. And Notre Dame's offensive line with Jeremiah Love running behind them was a massive reason as to why they got to the point of the season they got to. So to take a guy from that, I'm not going to complain about it if Nebraska ends up getting him. And I think that Nebraska offensive line would be better with him starting. So it'd be a really, really good late pickup.
Yeah, it's timing is everything because Nebraska has an opening. Nebraska has some money for an offensive lineman because they loaded up for Pete, and Pete decided to go to Kentucky. So they have money. He plays guard. They're kind of full at guard, but he's got experience.
And he would
played a lot of football.
He would probably start.
That'd be great if he didn't. That would be a good sign.
He would.
But in the whole trying to discuss what's going to happen on the offensive line, and the two biggest question marks are Teddy and Turner. Now I'll give it to Pritchett, who is not as big as he looked at Alabama. Now I don't know if it's the offseason he stopped eating in Tuscaloosa, but when saw him the other night, he's not like everything you saw at Alabama. He a big boy.
Yeah,
but he didn't look like he was as big. And I don't know. I mean, what's the difference between 300 and 320?
10 pounds.
He did play a full
pounds.
season. So he doesn't have a history of being injured. That's at least a positive. Gatula made it through a year when he was pressed into service. The two biggest ones, and I'm sure Rule, who's going to speak here shortly, not this morning, that'll be a question that'll come up is what's the timeline of the rehab of Teddy? Is Turner going to be ready to play? What are you counting on him for spring? So on and so forth. But if you're looking at how you judge Donovan Raiola, and I think this whole season, you can have year 2 jump from Dylan Raiola. This whole season is about the 5 that's going to be in front of him, that you have a good core 5 and then you add 3 and you don't even really talk about them, is do you judge Donovan Raiola's skills on where Elijah Pritchett is at the end of the year, or a guy like Grant Bricks, or a guy like Torres? So see what I'm doing? So are we judging a guy who's got some issues that's coming from Alabama with his feet and other things that he's got to work on? Is he the same guy here? You know, because a lot of portal offensive linemen look like they're the same guy. Mazuka was the same guy he was at Florida. He just didn't get to play as much at Nebraska. That was on him. Or do we judge Donovan Raiola strictly on the high school guys that they've recruited, because they have loaded up in the last 3 years on high school offensive linemen? But to your point, it's time for him to play.
Yeah.
It's time for him not just to get in the third quarter against Houston Christian, but to be playing in the first, second quarter against Cincinnati.
I like what you talked about there, because it really does come down to 2 methods of judgment, right? Do you judge Donovan Raiola on how he's able to fix a college player that is coming from a previous offensive line coach that has problems, or do you judge him on, because very few high schools just around the country in general really have like offensive line coach that, not like a true offensive line, high quality, massive influence type coach, where it's like, you can't you have to unteach them stuff, right? Now you have to probably teach them new things, right? But for the most part, and now I'm not speaking for every high school around the country, but for the most part, Raiola, when he gets these high school recruits, he's a true coach and really has to have his full influence on them. When he gets a guy from a different college, they're coming from a previous college coach who's already sunk their teeth on him, who's already put their methods and put their ideas and their ideology into blocking. And in some points, in some instances, if they're not coming from the same coaching tree that Raiola is coming from, he's got to unteach some things. And so it's 2 different aspects in which makes it really difficult. Look,
they need to turn the corner with offensive line.
They do.
They need to start churning some NFL guys. So when the top prospect in South Dakota, Hudson Parliament, what is an incredible name for an offensive lineman from the Sioux Falls area, chooses Iowa over Nebraska, and people up there say, man, I watched Nash play in high school. This guy is on the same level as Nash. Nebraska lost a guy to South Dakota that goes to Iowa. Well, if you're a tight end or you're an offensive lineman, or a defensive lineman, linebacker, hell, defensive back, ooh, that's not bad. That's not good. Why wouldn't you go to Iowa? So Nebraska needs to start having some guys that play early, get accolades, go to the league, and so then you can recruit to that, because you're competing for Midwestern offensive linemen against the likes of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas State, schools that have a little bit more of a history of guys going to the NFL. I mean, Nebraska's going to have a guy start in the Super Bowl that played here. They're also going to have a guy on a roster who was undrafted out of here, Nick Gates. Need more guys drafted.
So our previous interview with Matt Vrzal on Friday, Matt said something that I totally agree with and that I've thought of before when it comes to these offensive lines, that Donovan is from the dawn of when he came here during the Scott Frost final year into Mickey Joseph, his offensive lines always got better as the season continued. And I think that's been now a 3-year trend with his O-lines, where they start off a little shaky, and then as the season goes on, it seems like they're shoring up their protection. And Matt said it, and I totally agree. I hope we get to the point where that's not happening, where as soon as they get to week 1, it is a really good product, and it's not a meh product. It might be a problem, and then as the year goes. Now, I'm not discrediting Donovan at all. It's a great accomplishment to see the offensive line year in and year out continuously get better throughout the season, and it's not like he's been sans of injury. There's been plenty of injuries for the last couple of years on that offensive line mid-season, and it seems like he's been able to develop a depth that there's not a big step back taken when those injuries happen. But Nebraska needs to get to the point where every year we are not questioning whether or not the offensive line is going to be good. And every year we are not saying they need to go and get a portal guy, because the best teams in the country don't have those problems.
All right. Sam McEwen's going to join us at 7:30. I'm sure he's got a thought or two on a guy that might bring a mullet. Andrew Morgan might have competition for the best mullet on campus. If Rocco wants to grow out his mullet. Rocco Spindler on campus.
Great name.
That's a good offensive lineman. You can't play you could play defensive line with that name, but you can't play I don't know.
You can't be a punter.
You can't be a
Can't be a kicker.
You can't be a wide receiver.
Wide receiver would be tough,
No.
but you'd be sneaky athletic with that name.
Rocco
Tight end?
Spindler, though, would be a great linebacker name. Neck roll. I got that joke. It was a good one.
Sam coming up at 7:30. BC as well on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in, Gary and Matt. Jimmy here as well. Sam McEwen coming up at the bottom of the hour. I heard the word glory hole enough yesterday. How about that? Yesterday we had.
Jerry should know about those, but
Well, I got to fix the camera. I can't have that look. Okay. Yesterday we had Woody Johnson and Jerry Jones on the same day announcing their new head coach.
Everybody announced everybody's new head coach yesterday. Why was this a national day of announcing your new head coach? Jaguars did it. The Raiders did it.
It is a new
Dallas
administration.
Did it. Am I forgetting anybody?
Now there might be. There might have been
Jets did it?
there might have been a moratorium, and so don't don't mess with the championship weekend with any information
Gotcha.
story. So then Monday is the floodgate. Yeah, because we had Meme Guy in Jacksonville.
He looked so embarrassing. And then like the video of like him like seeing his office for the first time.
Yeah.
Buddy, it's an office. Okay. It's
Like you on your first day.
Hey,
I'm
do you,
just
do you
saying.
think it was a
Huh?
bit? Because he tried to go the
Dude.
Duval.
and he did it like in such like a I can't say that word on the air. You know what an F boy is?
No,
Yes.
what is it?
Yes.
It's like it's like a meme player type dude, like a youngin type, like just
Like Fred
awkward
Durst, he
man.
was doing it all
Like
for the nookie.
the way he was
Oh,
the way he was smiling too, like he was showing his teeth,
Yeah.
like he was showing his new like dentures. He's like Duval. Like I'm like, dude, who wants? If I'm a grown man
Duval
in the
Love?
NFL and I saw my coach
mhm.
act like that on the podium, I'd be like, this guy's a clown. Like I don't want to play for him.
So it was uncomfortable.
It was so
And
uncomfortable.
I'm not, you got to win the press conference. But the press conferences that are bad, we remember. But here's the thing. Now this might be a saving grace for the one or two Jacksonville fans out there. Hello, Bob Franzese, diehard Jacksonville fan. Nick Sirianni, do you remember his opening press conference? It was bad. It was really, really bad. And it was, people are like, oh my gosh, what are they getting into? You fired a guy that won the Super Bowl to hire Nick Sirianni, who, crazy, and I'm not a huge Sirianni fan. I give him credit because he might be the best coach in Eagles history. Get to that a little bit later. But he worked with the Chiefs when Todd Haley was the head coach.
Yeah.
So Sirianni's a knuckle dragger. But he had a terrible press conference. And look he's
He
in the
did have
Super
a
Bowl
bad
for the
press
second time in 3 years.
Sirianni's had a lot of bad press conferences. Too.
Well, because I don't think he's not trying to be polished. Like I like watching press conferences yesterday. Like Aaron Glenn talk like a football player.
yes,
Brian Schottenheimer really didn't get to talk.
No.
Them's the rules down there.
Well, he did. Brian Schottenheimer did have a really good like post press conference interview in which I don't know what woman reporter like was talking to him, but
Probably
she did a
someone that
great
works for
job.
the
It was like
Cowboys.
4 minutes. It was like really. He
But
looked.
remember, he isn't Brian anymore.
He's shoddy.
That's what Jerry said yesterday.
He's shoddy.
He's shoddy.
He ain't Brian anymore.
He's Coach Shoddy.
Brian's gone. He's shoddy. We're gonna win 8. Go 8-8.
But winning the press conference, like, okay, let's keep it close to home.
So
And
I knew
remember-
we were going there.
Remember any moments from press conferences here? Like opening press conference, like when you're introduced, not in the middle of the season where you make a asinine comment about Iowa or other stuff that athletic directors have done around here, but like opening press conference. Now, the Scott Frost opening press conference was uncomfortable. It was really, really tense. It got even worse when he just had the media on the side and lectured us about how to cover him. But no, like we haven't had like any memes, right? No memes from any of the like introductory press conferences to ADs or coaches in this state.
Not that I know of. Yeah.
Rule
was pretty good.
Well, when Scott,
Oh,
when
Scott.
are we counting Scott?
But
everybody.
introductory press conference.
Well, didn't in his introductory press conference he said, "I hope the Big Ten has to adjust to us."
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And they did.
and that was hammered. Like especially when Nebraska was losing a lot.
Wonder if
toward the
that'll
end.
be in Bill Moose's book.
Maybe. It probably will be. If we're
pop-up
being
book.
honest.
But yesterday, so why I bring up the press conference and winning the press conference, just because I saw a highlight of Jerry Jones speaking, and I think he's still talking.
Probably.
That was prime Cowboys because it was all about Jerry.
Yeah, always
Um,
has been, always will be.
Awkward. Nobody clapped for Stephen Jones. Like they introduced everybody, nobody in the room clapped for Stephen Jones. Do you guys know what a glory hole is?
Yes.
I've seen Porky's, I recall.
You guys are wrong. Your knowledge of the glory hole is very disappointing. You know, Jerry Jones keeps talking about the glory hole.
Smiles.
I don't know what you guys are thinking, but after watching Landman, I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Ah,
So it is in the petroleum industry. I just learned that yesterday because when he said glory hole, we're thinking about a night over in Council Bluffs.
Yeah.
I don't think that's illegal in Nebraska.
no. Or
Unless
near
it-
Valley Ranch in the
Unless
90s.
it's out at 120th and Center. If you know, you know.
Mhm.
But he kept referring to it yesterday. And I'm like, man, he has broken into his landman character. That's from the petroleum industry. So you learn something new every day. But Jimmy, as the resident Cowboy fan,
For now.
what? I mean, if you said I'm out,
You can't.
I wouldn't blame you. It's 1995.
I know. Actually, what's today? 28th, excuse me. 29 years ago today was the last one. 29 years from now, they'll still be saying 58 years ago today was the last one.
I want you to go. So he had a bewildering rant yesterday. And I think as long as the Cowboys make money and they make news,
They ain't going to do anything else. But
winning, which would suck to be a fan. But if you'd like to go on a bewildering rant about the Cowboys, go ahead. And then I want to ask you a question about coaches, the 9 head coaches that the Cowboys have had.
F you, Jerry. Back to you, Gary.
Good job. Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, the top 3 Dallas Cowboy coaches of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Who would be your 4th?
Parcells.
Ahead of Mike McCarthy?
Yes.
And
I
then
know the
Garrett-
record doesn't say.
Does Garrett land
No, I
in
put
there?
McCarthy and then Garrett. And then after that, are we really still doing this? Because Dave Campbell's in there somewhere.
I do want to
Chan
say,
Gailey's
like-
Chan Gailey could have been decent, but that's
your last 2 head coaches, no, granted, like no playoff success. And so if you
No
don't
success
have
at
a
all.
lot, if you don't have a lot of playoff success, then what success would you really argue? But like you do have to admit that your team, like for the
Hasn't
last
won
decade,
since I had
has
body hair?
been pretty consistently in the picture, at least. You're pretty consistently.
I
in
mean,
the
they've been
picture.
the
You're
chair
pretty
in the corner
consistently
watching, but
in
they're
the
not
conversation.
participating.
You had a home playoff game last year where you were favored, where a
Home.
lot of people thought you were going to win, and you choked it.
Home.
But you were in the you were in the
50,000 Packer
convo.
fans.
Just think of how the Cowboys would be different if Des Bryant, if they would have ruled
Oh
that
my
a catch.
god!
Yeah,
And
they,
it was a catch.
it was a
a
catch.
catch.
they'd have
I-
lost at Seattle the next week, though.
It was a catch.
You are so optimistic as a fan.
That's
I
crazy.
just, I
Realistic.
love it.
Realistic.
So
They'd have played well, though.
before you ask your other question,
About Glory Hole?
so
A couple
I
times.
learned a lot about fracking.
do you? If
I
you
was
were,
following the politics, and they were talking
Yeah.
about fracking whenever they were in Pennsylvania. I learned more about fracking watching Landman.
if you
Hope
were,
you guys have watched it.
I've watched a little.
Oh, we're
bit
going
of
to
it.
bench the crap out of that. It's coming.
If
Can't
you
wait.
were Baker Mayfield, do you feel a little offended or almost like it's an indictment on your skill that your last 2 offensive coordinators right away after 1 year with you got a head coaching job? Because doesn't that kind of communicate like, oh, Baker's so bad that if these offensive coordinators are able to make him look really, really good, then we need to have them as our head coach.
See, I see it as a positive.
Isn't
Baker
it a
gets
little
these guys
bit? Isn't it a
But
little?
didn't Baker help them get the job, though?
Yeah.
Like Liam Cohen was up
But-
he was mentioned last year.
Sure, but like if you had a quarterback like, for example, like you had a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or like these top like Todd Monken, like the Ravens offense was the top offense in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
They were the best offense in the NFL. Now they ran the ball a lot, but they had a hell of a year. And Todd Monken interviewed for a lot of these jobs and could not get one of these head coaching jobs. And they had a better offense than Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator gets a head coaching job. Now, interviews happen and personalities and whatever. Maybe Monken didn't
And
get
he
along.
screwed over Tampa Bay, by
Yeah.
the way.
But like all I'm saying, I'm being like tongue in cheek here a little bit. But at the same time, it's like if I'm Baker, I'm like, am I that bad that when I do well, people like just get head coaching jobs because people doubt my ability to the point where it's like, well,
Yeah,
if
you see the
Baker's
glass
playing
is
well,
half empty.
this guy's got to be.
So
Gotta
could you
be
say that
really
about your
good
new
at his
coach
job.
and Ben Johnson?
Mhm.
That people are like,
Yeah,
I don't know about Goff, and all of a sudden Jared Goff's turned into a serviceable, little above
more
serviceable
than serviceable
NFL quarterback.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you'd probably say the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd
He's
say
just
that
good.
about a
But-
lot of
But
offensive
look
coordinators.
at Patrick Mahomes' OCs. Now, Reed is the OC.
Yeah.
He's the genius.
They have a title. Eric Bieniemy is out of work.
Yeah, and Matt Nagy will now.
Matt Nagy is hanging on because he thinks he'll be the heir apparent to Andy Reid. That's the story in Kansas City.
You know, it's
Oh.
funny though too with
Oh.
like Nagy, like
Vermeil's still got some
Na-
in the tank if it gets to that point.
Nagy got dragged through the mud in Chicago, and don't get me wrong, I was there, you know, rightfully so in some instances, but they still did make the playoffs twice. They still did have a great, like, it wasn't like he's the worst. He's not Nat Hackett
See, even with the
You know?
Cowboys making the playoffs, that's not good enough. Even if it's been 30 years, it's still, they made the playoffs. You're great. You get a participation ribbon. It doesn't do anything for me. They made the playoffs last year. I could have given 2 S's.
At least they're winning.
They're not winning. That's the
They're
point.
winning games, though.
Winning games that don't count.
I like winning.
Yeah, I did the whole. I went down the rabbit hole of bad franchises last night.
I bet they start at the top with bad ownership. It's kind of like
Mhm.
college programs. If you have a bad athletic director,
Yep.
you're not going to be able to overcome in your main sports.
So, since a lot of these, funny enough, are since 2012. In 2012, Shad Khan became the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've had 7 head coaches and 2 GMs. Their average, you want to guess what their average first round draft pick position is? I went through all 13
4.3.
drafts. I went down, I added them up, I did the math. What do you think it is?
4.3.
4.3?
Yep.
It's 8.4.
Got to be worse than that.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. 8.4, 13 seasons.
High on
and
the
you
Richter
are
scale.
on average.
Well, but when they have been good, they've actually been like,
they
oh my
went
God,
to the
we're,
AFC.
we're on the it. Yeah, look who they had in 2018. They played the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl.
So Browns ownership bought their team.
God,
Also,
how miserable would that been in Minneapolis? First Super Bowl in Minneapolis, and you get the Jags.
Yeah.
so Browns ownership, they
And
bought
it's
their
cold.
team in
And Leonard
2012.
Fournette.
They've had 7 head coaches. Their average draft pick position is 11. The Bears, so George McCaskey became the chairman of the Bears in 2011. Now, his first draft wasn't until 2012. So
Mhm.
dating back to 2012, they've had 6 head coaches, 3 GMs. Their average draft pick position is 9. Jets, since 2012. Now, Woody Johnson bought them in 2000.
I
They've
remember.
had 6 head coaches, 4 GMs. Their average draft pick position is 9.5. Raiders, since 2012, 8 head coaches, 5 GMs. Average draft pick position is 11.5.
Now do the Commanders.
Yeah.
I didn't do the Commanders.
But
Okay.
that's where it changes.
Well, so
is their
that's
ownership changed
yes.
hands and much better owner, which much better hire,
Mhm.
and
Good
you,
GM.
you fell into a draft position that you were able to get a franchise-changing quarterback.
well.
But everything starts at the top. This is college and professional sports are the same. If you have solid ownership that hires the right people and lets them do their job, you got a chance to be successful.
And right there is why my
And
team will never win.
Same thing in college athletics. Everything starts at the top with a very good athletic director that makes good hires and get the hell out the way. There is no better example of that than Bruce Rasmussen at Creighton. He's stability in the power chair, somebody who's really good, makes good hires, and get out the way.
Mhm.
So college and professional sports
Great
are the same.
example.
It starts at the top, and even in college, if you want to go a step further, it's who is above them that is at the university. For example, Nebraska went through dysfunction of where they couldn't align everything, and then they finally gotten on the same page, and the people that are above the athletic department that don't appear to be athletic people or the same vision, they are being pushed aside, and they're like, no, we're just going to deal with you.
Yeah. Well, so out of all the press conferences yesterday that I watched,
Mhm.
the one that I was most impressed with was the Las Vegas Raiders with John Spytek and Pete Carroll.
Because Marshawn Lynch
And
popped in.
Raiders. Now, I was
He
impressed,
didn't even know there was
though.
a press conference going on. He just,
Spytek was sharp. He was confident. He was respectful. Paid a lot of tribute. He even made a joke at Pete about his age. He was talking about his high school coach being
73. Let's have a rebuild with the Raiders.
And then Carroll's Pete Carroll, and he was just sitting there. And it's funny. I'm like, wow, these guys look like legitimate professionals. I mean, Spytek has been all over the league in terms of being a scout and being an assistant GM and working with
Spygate.
stuff.
Mhm.
And you start thinking, well, Mark Davis didn't hire him. Tom Brady hired him.
Tom Brady, who's
And
going to
so-
be in the broadcast booth for the Super Bowl. How friggin' the NFL, man, that's a smart move by the NFL. Allowing the guy that's running the Raiders to be in the broadcast booth.
I thought they'd let Mahomes be
something.
in the booth, but he has to work.
But he hired those guys, and you could tell that, okay, these are serious NFL football people. And Brady knows, if Brady knows anything, he knows what a serious football person looks like. who he can trust. And he hired those guys, and they look professional, and they look like they knew what they were doing, and they
Give me the
looked
deets of what a
motivated.
serious football professional look like, because I want to see if I fit the bill.
I'd like to know too.
Well, it's
6'4",
more so in the resume
210.
than it is in the
look.
look. Yeah.
You can't be a frumpy guy and be like, "Hey, man, that's a smart football
What do you think
guy."
the average height of an NFL coach is?
uh,
It's got to be like 6'1", 6'1.5".
I'm sure Elias Sports Bureau has this answer.
It'd be great. Elias, I'm pretty sure they do. Pretty
Yeah.
sure if we texted them, they could get back to us.
I don't know. Save that question when they get together for the annual
I
meetings
love
and they
that
have the
pick.
coaches.
team
Oh,
picture.
the coach's pick.
Yep.
I love the coach's pick.
Andy
Breaking
Reid's
that
always
down.
my favorite.
All right, Sam McEwen coming up before the hour is over. We come back. Speaking of dysfunction in the power chair, the moose is loose. Bill Moose is back, and he's back about Nebraska. We'll get into that as we roll till 10 on Tuesday on 1620 The Zone.
Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the playoffs, like which players are going off, which ones are ice cold. With over 5 million happy players and rising and $2 million won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. With Underdog's double flex option, you can take 2 L's and turn them into a W. With their pick'em game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like yards, touchdowns, interceptions. You get the idea. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. You can create entries with all football picks while we still have football, or mix and match across your other favorite sports because it's getting to be that time of the year. Got to start doing the other sports. That's what I'm doing this week on Underdog. I'm all over college basketball, and it's been pretty good. Underdog is the best place to play pick'em. Hey, if it's good enough for Bill Belichick, it's good enough for me. Download the app, sign up with promo code ZONE, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code ZONE. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, welcome back in 1620 The Zone. Hello, everybody on TV. Hello, Kobe. I was thinking of you, Jimmy, last night.
Many do.
That's true. That's what people around the building tell me.
I don't know what's wrong with
Because
them.
this is Pro Bowl week,
Oh.
and it's no longer like it used to be. So now we play games. Somebody
Yeah.
tweeted out a picture of the old Aloha Stadium
Oh.
in Honolulu, which had like the iconic look. There wasn't like anything special, but
No.
like you saw it and you immediately thought Pro Bowl
End of the season.
or the Hula Bowl.
So I know it was recently they started doing the whole, all right, we're not going to play actual football
Yes,
thing.
They used to
But
play a
when
game.
when did the downward trajectory begin? Like
When
when
Sean
did-
Taylor annihilated that punter?
No,
Yeah.
I feel like I remember.
There was a
You don't remember that.
drunk kicker comment from Peyton.
Yes.
I think once guys started like, "No, we're not going to get hurt,"
Yeah,
and more guys opted out. And by the way,
I
I
wonder
have
what
breaking
year that
news for you concerning the Pro Bowl.
yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs have announced that every one of their starters is going to forego the Pro Bowl. They're going to sit out the Pro Bowl
I
this
thought
weekend.
you were going to say the opposite. I was like, damn.
Oh, what a shocker! That's terrible for the league.
Just telling you. So there's something you're not going to get anywhere else except for this show.
Can they not go out there though and just represent and be in a bucket hat and just walk around and
I think COVID
Yeah.
did them in, so they moved it from the islands to Orlando.
And they got tuberculosis going around Kansas City. You don't need to take that to Orlando.
Excuse me?
You didn't know that?
Oh, that's right. In the
Yeah,
state
yeah.
of Kansas.
Yeah.
Like the biggest outbreak.
Yeah.
oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. Glad we're not there.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a
we
lot of
had
reasons why you're glad you're not in Kansas.
We had a lot of things. I mean, there was sickness that's been going around, I think, in this Omaha metropolitan
In this
area. Everybody
building?
that I know has had some sort of cold or half cold or like stuffy or like little raspy throat thing.
How do you have a half cold?
I had
What
a
is
half
a half
cold. I had a
cold?
half cold last week where I was stuffy and my sinuses were bad and like I had Zycam here. Like I was taking the
He's
Zycam
who's
and-
going to get you finally with your 2 lines.
in the emergency.
You know that I will kill you.
No, I know. I didn't have it.
Okay.
I didn't. It wasn't COVID. I just
All
had a like a half cold where I was
I'm on
able to
about
power.
5 years.
I was able to power through the day.
I don't think that's a half cold. I think they got just have
That's
a
a
cold.
cold.
I don't think like Fauci or whoever is playing the role of Fauci these days.
Mhm.
Whoever's Fauci adjacent. Yeah.
Whatever is going on. I don't think they go, that's a half cold.
You're good.
Can I just call it a half cold?
Like I
Can
only had
just-
chicken pox on my left arm. Oh, you had half chicken
half
pox.
pox.
Half chicken
You
pox.
got half pox.
You got a half piece.
You're a half pocker.
half.
The whole thing is to be a full pocker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meet the Pockers.
Meet the Pockers. Meet the Mets. Greet the Mets. Bill Moose is back in the news.
It's all about the Mets. All about the Mets.
So I was reading old Stevie Sipple's column today
I know
on
him.
3, Oscar Online. It actually was really good because I was running late, but it was Coach Solich talking about Calvin Jones. So it was a really good from Frank's perspective about his relationship with CJ.
Yeah.
But then he drops at the bottom because Sipple is the only media guy that Bill Moose stays in contact with. And I also don't know that there's a desire for a lot of us to reach out to Moose. He was always cordial to me.
Mm-hmm.
But Sipple he knows what he has with Sip and he can use Sip. And so Sip likes to talk to him. And, Sip writes a story. He's like, hey, you know what? Let's get Bill Moose's perspective on this. So he dropped this little nugget in his story today that the book that Bill Moose is writing about from his time in athletics is, I think, and it's been in the works for a while. I think it's getting closer to the finish line, which
Okay.
in that world would be being published. But Sip said there will be some Nebraska anecdotes in the book that people will be very interested in.
I'll just read it from his article. So you perhaps heard last week on Husker Online headlines that Bill Moose is in the process of writing a book about his quarter-century-long career as an athletic director. There will be at least a couple of chapters regarding his tenure at Nebraska, 2017 to 2021, and those chapters will be very newsworthy based on anecdotes Moose has mentioned to me in recent months. Obviously, Moose would kill me if I spilled the beans on anything.
Okay, so are people around here, would they buy the book to read
Yes.
it? No, you don't. You know what? You're not going to have to because you know what's going to happen is all
We're
of
going to
us.
get it for free.
We're gonna buy
No. We won't. They won't. They ain't
All
giving
right,
it for
we're gonna
free.
get it for free. I will buy the book. I will buy us all.
Why?
the book.
Why would you buy the book? I only want to see the stuff about Nebraska. And you know what? people around here will take excerpts out of it, and you'll be able to get it free.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't buy the book.
I'll borrow it from Matt.
Okay,
I'll-
that's
I'll
what's
buy
going to
the
happen.
book. I will probably,
That's
but
right.
I would read.
You have all the money.
I would
Yeah.
read.
Big
no,
bucks,
but
big
I
money
would
you're
actually,
making from all your bets.
I would actually want to read the full book because I do.
Why?
Because I like those types of books.
He likes reading.
You know,
For
from
fiscal responsibility?
no, just from the from the perspective of like athletic directors and like announcers and broadcasters and Moneyball.
You
and
could
just,
read
like, I
excerpts
like
on the
that.
show.
Like I'm reading Brandon Vogel's book right now about.
You'll be able to
John
find the
Cook.
Nebraska stuff in there for free.
No, but I would buy that book just to read. Period. Like just to read.
I would think of other athletic directors, but
I'm now obviously I'm going to jump straight to the Nebraska.
that's the only
chapters.
part. I don't care about any of their stuff. I don't care about how you put Washington State in a financial hole. Okay, that's their issue. They're not even in the Pac-12 anymore. But from the Nebraska perspective, and I don't know what'll be in there, because I also thought when Moose was when they put the U-Haul van in his driveway and said it's time for you to go, didn't he sign? Wasn't there a non-disclosure agreement
Of
of his departure, of why he was all of a sudden retiring? Because remember, it was a tad bit abrupt.
It was abrupt.
It was abrupt. It was abrupt. It was the College World Series. It was the Friday of the College World Series. It was a great College World Series show. But this is what I would like. I would just like him to comment on a couple of things that we've all either wondered aloud or privately. One, the pursuit of Scott Frost, I think, is well known and well written, and you get an understanding of how Moose approached that. So I don't know that needs to be in the book because I think all of us around here know how that happened. I mean, we've already had a book out about that. But what I would like to know is what happened with the Akron game in detail.
Yeah.
Where were you? What happened? The communication, Akron leaving, who was in charge, all of that stuff. I'd like the kind of like the behind the scenes of the Akron game. That's one I would like to know. I'd also like to know his emotions of the weird night at PBA when he was there in his sweatshirt and his jeans, and from about 400 yards away, the Omaha World Herald with a big lens camera was taking pictures of him. Like they're just very awkward. Like there had been some stuff out, and he did not take that very well. And so that was, I mean, he was down on the dauber that night. So I would like to know like the emotions that were going on that night. I'd also like, there's a little background of, like the relationship between Scott and how that all worked, and then navigating the athletic department through COVID, which for the most part, Nebraska did very well. Then I would like to know, and this is always one that we think we know, but we don't. I would like to know the whole Oklahoma schedule fiasco. Like I think Moose fell on the sword for that that was pushed by the head coach.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Brett McMurphy tweets it out, and you know what that was like? You were in school, right?
I was in school.
Okay.
Yes.
That became a firestorm.
Yeah.
I think, and then Moose had to respond later.
They had
in the
to
day.
cover it up.
Yeah,
and
I think he fell on the sword.
and
I would kind of like a little bit of that.
had to get it back on the track and clear everything up. So here's what I want to know.
But I imagine all this stuff will not be in there. But that would be juicy enough that maybe I would buy the book. I want juicy.
What I want to know.
A Lucy.
I want, obviously, the stuff that you bring up and the specifics of certain things. Obviously, yeah, I think those are great points. But macro, what I want to know and what I want to discover from reading these Nebraska chapters is we always kind of talk about Nebraska is different. Being the head coach for Nebraska football is much different than being the head coach for a lot of other college football teams. Being at the head of the Nebraska athletic department is a massive, massive, I don't want to call it burden, but role to have, because you have very few teams, very few colleges where team success and team interest and fan engagement literally is a pivotal marker, not only of just the economy, but the social economy as well. You know, when the Huskers are doing good, just in sports in general, people are happier, right? And when the Huskers are doing good in sports, more people are going to games, more people are spending money in Lincoln. It matters to businesses. And there's that doesn't happen a lot in other places. And so I want to know from Moose's perspective, how's it different? Like, why was the burden? Was the not the burden? I don't want to call it a burden because it's an honor to be at that top position at a school like that with that much tradition and that much care. So it's not a burden, but the having that role, how much different is it? How much more weight is it on your back? Is it something that he didn't anticipate? Because I think that there are,
that's very much so.
yeah, and I think that there are plenty of people who come to this state, who work at this athletic or work at that athletic department, who don't realize how important it is to people. And so I just want to see from his perspective how much different it is from working at his previous spots in Washington, or Oregon State and Washington State.
So
that's what I wanted. How much different is it?
That book will come out. What do you think the title will be? Moose on the Loose?
Ooh.
If he went, juicy, that would sell here.
Turn the moose loose.
That would be good for sports talk shows. We'd have some good content, or it would validate what we've either talked about or thought about some of those things that went on. But he had he had an interesting tenure. Now, the book that I would probably like, that would probably not be Eichhorst's name on the front of it, but the story of Sean Eichhorst's tenure at Nebraska. And how all that went from the transition to Osborne to firing a football coach to hiring a coach and everything in between.
Yeah.
That might be the most interesting stretch of an athletic director. I don't want to talk about Peterson, but Eichhorst and the different things that he had to do.
We're not going to let this program fall into mediocrity.
Well, I mean, he fired Bo, he hired Mike Riley. Said that Bob Diaco
I
was the best on campus.
I was talking about Peterson. I was talking about Peterson and his quote about Solich. Yeah. And then literally what he didn't want to happen happened immediately after that. But what would be a good title? Moose on the Loose? Like, I know that's
I think Bill Moose is probably officially retired. He kicked the tires on the UNLV job. And
what, he's 74 now? 74? Probably.
Retired. He could coach the Raiders at that
Him
age.
And his wife.
Probably made a good chunk of change being the athletic director of Nebraska.
And now Nebraska's kind of gone 2 straight athletic directors where it's been really quiet.
Yeah. Well, Dannon, it seems like he's tweeting about the stadium and as if it's going to be even bigger and even more different than what Alberts was planning on doing with South Stadium before that, which I've always thought that, and I know that there were plenty of other reasons as to why Trev moved on from Nebraska to Texas A&M, but I do think there was a factor in the fact that Trev got up there on that podium and said, hey, this is what we're going to do with South Stadium, and this is what the project is going to be, and it just wasn't really met with the happiness and like the excitement that maybe he was looking for. And there were some people, you can even argue, that were just kind of more disappointed with the fact that, hey, we're not going to be able to watch Nebraska football for at least a year, and so it'll be interesting to see what the perception is when Dannon releases this stadium plan, which we are assuming is going to come out in the next couple of months.
Or supposed to be out by now.
Yeah.
He was hoping to have it out before Christmas.
So
then it was supposed to happen right after Christmas.
It's quiet now.
Or the end of January.
It's quiet now, but we'll see what happens when he tells what the plan is really going to be.
Which Christmas?
No, he said we did the deal in October together, and he said that we will have an announcement before Christmas. That's our plan. And then he kind of pushed it back, and he said shortly after the first of the year, when they announce what they're going to do with the stadium, which, it's going to be a large financial project that they're going to have a lot of money in hand before some, shovels start moving dirt.
You don't want to read the Washington State and Oregon and Montana excerpts from Bill Moose?
Why?
Okay. Maybe it brings a little bit perspective into your Nebraska chapters. It all sets up for the Nebraska
chapters.
You're
going to read it for us.
Because the Nebraska chapters will be at the end of the book, more than likely.
Somebody will steal excerpts, give us some screenshots.
You want a little bit of context.
No, I got enough context.
Fair enough.
I watched him in action.
That's a good point. You lived it.
Sam McEwen is coming up next. All right, this is another plug that Bubba Sparks should be the game day theme again. Welcome back in, Gary and Matt. We welcome in Sam McCune of the Omaha World Herald. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. Are you in a quiet place, or you're very quiet?
I am not.
Okay.
No,
all
I'm
right,
just
all right.
nope.
All right.
Unless outside is quiet.
I thought you were in the Omaha Public Library right now. You're all good.
You
All
can't-
good.
I can't speak.
Yeah.
I'm at the mill. Let me ask you about basketball, and not necessarily what they're going through right now, but the commitment to basketball. Because you have a good handle on how 1890 operates and how 1890 how they have to do their job, but it's a combo, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Maryland announced a $10 million commitment by an anonymous donor strictly for men's basketball. There's a lot of discussion going on when you look at Nebraska's portal activity of guys they missed on. So it goes back to, it's a familiar theme of what is Nebraska basketball's NIL like? We spend a lot of time talking about football, but do you know or have a handle or an opinion on what Nebraska basketball's NIL is like, where they can compete in the Big Ten?
I don't think that Nebraska basketball has the kind of resources that Indiana probably is thrown around. Indiana's had a lot of NIL money. Obviously, it hasn't necessarily helped them on the court. They're probably one of the best funded Big Ten programs. Obviously, Maryland announced that yesterday with the intention of letting everybody know, that they want to compete in what I think a lot of people would still consider their premier sport.
Yep.
At Maryland, and the crowd support for the Sunday game against Nebraska was just anemic, and that's probably a different story for a different day. But obviously, Maryland is not competing in the way that Maryland used to compete. I mean, the level of player that Maryland used to get versus maybe the guys are getting now is challenging. And part of this too is that once you get a good basketball player, you have to pay them retention money. Like you can lock them up, but you got to pay them in order to do it. And so, there's a question about retention and then addition. And I think one of the challenges that Nebraska is going to have to navigate is, if it continues to embrace a model of primarily addition and not sort of high school development and going that way, I think the market is going to be more lucrative. And so you're going to be competing against teams that are seeking to add 2 or 3 pieces versus 6 or 7. And if you're going to do that, I think the NIL commitment needs to be significant. Not rev share. So rev share is one thing, but rev share is contained within the university. And I think almost all programs understand that if you don't have to be Title IX compliant, in other words, Title IX compliance is the wrong word. If Title IX is not applied to the rev share numbers, most of the rev share is going to go to football. And that would be true at the University of Maryland as well. And so you have to have outside donor dollars to supplement what you're doing. So Nebraska is going to have to figure that out. If they continue to go with this model of adding to the portal where they're adding 6 to 7 players a year, then you're going to have a more significant financial commitment, because you're going to have a harder time securing players because you're competing against Kansas. You're competing against UCLA for William Kyle. You're competing against Michigan State for Frankie Fiddler. So things like that. I think those are the things that Nebraska has to navigate. The support from the rank and file fan is significant. My former boss was back in town over the last couple of weeks. And of course, he follows ACC basketball very closely.
Did he bring his son with him?
No. And he was just talking about the Nebraska basketball atmosphere just being top flight.
Yeah.
Just terrific, like compared to some of the atmospheres in the ACC. And Nebraska's rank and file support is awesome. It's never going to be a question of that, but it's more a question of the financial component from big ticket donors and people who have a lot of money. And And I think everybody kind of knows who those folks are, but understand they've had to give a lot of money for a lot of things.
Yeah.
They had to pay out Scott Frost. They had to build a new football building. They're being asked to do a lot with the new football stadium. So really generous people are being asked over and over and over again to fund a plethora of initiatives at Nebraska. And men's basketball, if we're going to be honest, may not be at the top of the list. The football building needed to get done. And there's other things too. And there's football roster,
Yeah.
Man, people want that football team to be good. And I think the financial support for the football team is pretty good. I don't think it's number one in the Big Ten. That's obviously Ohio State, but I think Nebraska's football support's pretty good given the players that they were able to land.
Sam, it's a perfect end to your answer, because this is the exact question I was going to ask you. Is there worry with the Go Big project, then followed up by the NIL commitment in order to, fund the transfer portal and high school recruiting? And then on top of that, now with the pending Memorial Stadium project that is, soon to be announced here, is there a little worry, you think, that if there's a lack of football success, that donor fatigue might set in?
I don't know that it's ever going to set in with football.
Okay.
I think there's a sense of this is now ingrained in this, in our DNA commitment throughout the state. And so I think the stadium project is going to probably be worked out in a way that lessens the immediate financial contribution, the immediate financial need. And we may learn more about the stadium stuff this week or next week. So I think there's that. Some of the other sports are going to be the thing to watch. I think men's basketball, women's basketball, volleyball. I mean, they're all high profile sports, and they all desire funding. What I'll say for the women's basketball program is that I think their framework is just a little different in that they have, I think you can look at that program and say, well, here's the core, and you can see what the core is going to be for the next 3 years. Or at least, 3 years. Because a lot of these players that they're talking about are sophomores and freshmen. You can kind of see it. And they're probably going to have to, pay some money to keep some of those players over time. But you see it there. I think with Nebraska men's basketball, Fred's going to have to decide, okay, is Braden Frager and Nick Janowski, we're gonna redshirt those dudes, and then we're going to build our backcourt around those two guys going forward. It's not going to be plug here, add here. And can you do that in the front court? I think that's a question mark, because Fred seems very comfortable building his front court through the portal, and that's fine. But again, it costs you money. Like Berke Buchtengel wasn't free. And
no, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. So and I still think he can be a good player. There's a smoothness to Buchtengel's game that you cannot discount. He's just got to get it to come all the way together. He doesn't look mechanical. Like, he looks like he understands what he wants to do. It just hasn't quite come together. Berke Buchtengel is somebody I'm going to watch very closely in February and March, because if that guy kind of figures the whole thing out, that's a good basketball player. That's a 12-7 going forward. Right now he's 7-6, and he needs to score better. But that's the player to watch, because they did expend a little bit of NIL money to get it.
A week ago, Rocco Spindler was hanging out at the national championship game. Today he's supposed to be hanging out in Lincoln. If he doesn't leave Lincoln and says yes, the reason that the Notre Dame transfer offensive lineman stays in Lincoln is because of what?
Well, they probably supported him NIL-wise, and then Donovan Real. Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with the position coach, because he has options at Michigan. Everybody knows that Michigan's head coach is their offensive line guru. And then he has an option at Indiana. Now, again, the only reason you'd go to Indiana is for recent success. If you're gonna line up resources and head coach personality, I think Nebraska's a huge edge there. So it comes down to, you want to go somewhere where they were good last year and you don't have to move too far. That would be the only thing there. I think Nebraska and Michigan, it's very comparable, and Michigan's a very good O-line school, and if you want to go there, you want to go there, and if you want to come to Nebraska, I think they're probably two different experiences. And I think if you want to work and play for Donovan Raiola, then you come to Nebraska.
Sam, it came out early this morning that Bill Moose is going to come out with a book. Is there anything that you want or you're curious to read about in his chapters about Nebraska athletics?
He's been working on it for quite some time. He was working on it when he was still the AD at Nebraska, or at least that's what I heard. Wow. So like he's been working on this for a while.
Oh wow!
Kind of putting together his memories. He has a lot of them. He's a great storyteller. I mean, he is among the best storytellers that I've run across in my time covering people. And like he can tell stories from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And he can tell stories about the Pac-12, old school stories that are fun to listen to. And there are a few people on the planet who love football the way that he does. Like he loves all of it.
That is true.
Like when he's from a little kid, the whole thing. And so I'm going to read the book because I know it's going to be a love letter to a life in athletics. That I know. I think, and just in my conversations with him, and I haven't talked to him for a couple of years. I think the last time I reached out to him is when the late Mike Leach passed away. But like, I think in his last years in the job, he was getting, this isn't what college athletics should be. And I think he felt sad about it. And I think he felt very sad about the falling apart of the Pac-12. I think I texted him then too. And so I suspect there might be a little bit of what was beautiful has been lost in that book. I do think he'll talk a little bit about Frost, although not as much as I think people imagine. We'll see. I think he'll probably speak a lot about the dissolution of the Pac-12, his time with Mike Leach, his brief time at Nebraska. I think what the job had become, the AD job had become, was maybe no longer in his wheelhouse. I think his wheelhouse was Oregon and Washington State. So I do look forward to reading it. I think he's, a fascinating persona, and I feel like I have a really good handle on the Frost years. I'm sure he can illuminate and share some details, but I think everybody's ready to chalk up the Frost period at Nebraska to, that just didn't work. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody's eager to see if it works again at UCF, because then it'll be more about the fit was wrong.
Yep.
It just never was meant to be. It wasn't really about Bill Moose or anybody else. So, but I'll read the Frost chapter. I'm sure there's one in there, and I don't know what it'll say, but I'll be curious.
Sam McCune of the World Herald joining us. We are to the 28th of January. Nebraska football just announced their coaches clinic that they have every year during spring. But it's also around this time they announce the date and when tickets go on sale for the spring game. So that may be coming. But what's your feeling on the future of the spring game at Nebraska? One of the rare places that still draws a large crowd for an exhibition game.
I think you can create a spring game moment that's fun and exciting without having to put a lot of your players in physical, harm. And obviously it's football. Mm-hmm. So some guys are going to get hurt during spring camp, before the spring game. But I think you can create an atmosphere and a moment that's competitive and fun that doesn't necessarily devolve into, some of the things that happened last year when they had two guys basically knocked out for the season with knee injuries. I know Blyhill came back, but he wasn't the same guy. So we'll see how they modify it, what they choose to do, the physicality with which they pursue the whole thing. And it may be that the spring game is changing. That used to be when I was a kid, I really paid very little attention to the spring game. That wasn't like the spring game became a thing, like truly a thing, the day that Bobby Newcomb went for like a 92-yard touchdown and, he won the quarterback job. I remember the last couple of spring games under Tom Osborne. There was like 30,000 people at the game. People were interested in it, but it wasn't the same. I guess the spring game where they honored Brooke Berringer, that was probably the first one that I remember being that way. But like when I was a kid, it just wasn't as big of a deal. Mm-hmm. Like we've made the spring game a huge deal because they made it a moneymaker. But maybe it's going back to what it used to be. And there's some really good football programs in college football that don't make a big deal out of the spring game, and it doesn't hurt them. So that's probably the direction Nebraska will go. And Matt Rule is going to protect his roster, and I totally understand it.
Yep. Sam, as always, we appreciate it. Have a great week.
Hey, take care.
Thanks, Sam.
That's Sam McEwen. There's a lot of people that feel like this year will be like the spring game is like there will be something, but it will not be a game.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that you're going from, and now granted, we don't know if they've made the full cut down to 105 yet. If, into spring, there might be more than 105, but they definitely have less and less dudes on this roster. And I do think the fact that you lost Bell last year, for the whole year, and they were really high up on him, and they thought that he was a guy who could make an impact on the team this season. He ends up, getting hurt, not playing this year. Same thing with Bly Hill. Bly Hill was a guy that they had gotten out of the portal that Evan Cooper had really liked. He gets hurt in the spring game, and it kind of messed him up. I think that might have put a bad taste in their mouth. With less players, maybe you do it less.
I think the spring game is slowly dwindling away.
Yep.
How about an open practice on a Friday night?
I'd do that.
Open practice Friday night. If you get part of it goes to the NIL, you get 20,000 people. But the days of the red-white spring game with, 3 teams, those days are over. But nothing's been announced by the spring game. Usually it's around this time of the year where they announce the date and when tickets go on sale. All right, 2 in the books, 2 to go. BC will join us a little bit later on Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, 8:01 on a Tuesday, a record-setting day in Omaha. Let's go for 60. If we stop at 59, 60 is the way to go. And then I've got my baseball fix. So we were talking about basketball at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I watched myself some little Dominican Republic, Winter League last night. It was fantastic.
They're taking over everywhere.
I wonder if we could ever get an atmosphere like that for just a normal baseball game around here. Like I do have it on the bucket list to go to Japan. I'd love to go to the Tokyo series between the Dodgers and the Cubs this year, but it isn't going to work out because I'm hoping to be in Raleigh.
I was going to say, we can't send you?
But like in Japan, it's just a constant noise.
Well, the Tokyo Dome. The Tokyo Dome is one of the best venues in the
egg.
world.
But I would like watching that last night. I would love to have that atmosphere for baseball. It'd be like the Millard West, Millard South State Baseball Championship a couple of years ago over at Tal Anderson, where it was just a party.
Oh, it
was loud. People were into it. Well, I wish it would. Like it used to be like that. Now it's changed. But I'm starting to get my baseball fix. Truck Day is coming up. Spring training's about to begin. Brian Christopherson will join us coming up at 9. Brian writes in the discussion about the future of the spring game, especially at a place like Nebraska. He said, great, now all the little kids are going to end up on drugs without the drug-free pledge. That is true.
Damn.
That is true. How many kids were saved because they got to go on the field and hear the football coach give a pledge to say no to drugs, and they remembered that their entire life?
Yeah. You want to take a hit? No.
I
T.O. said no.
That.
There comes the meth problem again.
Have you ever watched Ozarks?
Watched?
Ozark?
Yes.
Like we're
Fine family program.
I've seen, that's another show where I haven't seen the whole series, but I've seen enough of it to know what's going on. And I forget the kid's name, but the little kid, they have him try and pledge and say no to drugs. And he was like, well, actually, drugs helped prop up the U.S. economy in 2008. And a lot of people, it was fun. I always think of that when I think of the drug pledge.
Yeah, say yes. Okay.
Like, no, I'll say no to drugs just as long as you're willing to admit that, people make money and it does kind of help people out and people survive off of doing this.
Maybe they could have a separate say no to drugs.
If you just get rule in the middle of the end and everybody
to say what?
Everybody put up your right hand.
They don't even do it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't let the kids on the field. Hell, I went to Oral Roberts and during the under 16 media timeout in the second half, they invite everybody to come down on the field or on the floor and dance.
Oh, that would drive me
I
crazy.
saw that.
All those shoes on the floor.
Well, and they don't sweep the floor afterwards either.
Oh, that's terrible. Why would you do that? That's bush league.
You couldn't do that at
I
Allen.
think it's an ORU thing. No.
Well, obviously it's an ORU thing. I haven't seen anyone else do that.
I don't know what in particular why they do it because it's not like it's a special song or anything. It's just I don't know. They're doing the cha-cha slide. I can't remember. We're in the middle of a break, and I was like, oh my God, there are people flying from everywhere to get on the floor for 20 seconds.
Left. Take it back now, y'all.
But with the spring game, which is, I think across college football, the spring game is going to look completely different. And there'll be a lot of places where we're not playing a game. We might have an open practice, spend a little money, and we'll show you a little bit of what we have, but we're not playing a game because we don't have enough bodies. One of the things I really appreciated, like I enjoyed the 1890 open practice right at the beginning of fall camp back in August. I also really liked, so the year after COVID where nobody could go into the stands, that following spring football where you could have larger crowds, Scott did a open practice. And I thought it was great. I mean, people got to see, they didn't play a game. They played some 7-on-7, but they did all the stations. They did all the practices. I would take that over a spring game. I would play some 7-on-7. I know I got knocked for it in the past, but I would have like coaches mic'd up so that people could hear them coaching.
Yeah.
I think you'd get more out of that than coming to a spring game. And maybe that's the way that Nebraska goes, is they have 15 practices. They don't end with a game, but they end with an open practice where it costs you $5 to $10 to get in. All of the players go through a regular practice. The coaches are mic'd up.
Mm-hmm.
They explain some things. You give them a little, maybe even a little 11-on-11 scrimmage. Do a couple of stations, but get in, get out. You limit it to an hour and a half, and there you go. You got your fix for the spring. We avoided injuries. We don't have enough players for a game, and people got enough that they're not going to be like, oh, I paid this money, and you gave me a farce of a game. Now, one of the reasons why rule changed is because at the end of Scott's tenure, when Trev was here, it looked much different from when they both played. and Trev didn't like it, and Nebraska fans complained
Yes.
that
The
the
thudding.
money they were paying, $15, $20, $25, $30, whatever, they were getting a farce of a game. And so he was like, hey, we got to do something that resembles more football for a spring game. Well, nowadays it's just not going to look that way. So maybe we'll hear something this week as well. But also keep this in mind. When they start the stadium project, if they don't have to have a spring game in the stadium, they could probably speed up the timeline
Sure.
of work they can do.
I think, and hear me out here. You ready? Here's my pitch. The cut to 105. Okay. So on the Jumbotron, you have Monsters Inc., where you had the Monsters Inc. scareboard leader.
Mhm.
We put 95 through 115.
Mike
okay.
Wazowski.
We got the guys who are 95 to 115 or 120. And then basically we have that ranking. And then they go and they do drills and they practice. And then as the practice goes on, based on their performance, they gain points or
Ruthless.
lose points. And so you will be on the edge of your seat trying to see, oh my God, he just caught a pass. He went from 106 to 104. Oh my God, he's having a bad play. He's falling. He's dipping. He started at 94. Now he's at 102. Oh my God, what's going to happen? You got the 29 DBs. They're all wearing 1 through 29 to show what their ranking is going into the practice. I think that you don't think
That
people
would
would
be
pay
ruthless.
people would pay to see that. Can you imagine the families of the players out there in Memorial Stadium crutching onto their purses, watching their son battle for the spot on the team, comes down to the last play. This guy catches this ball. He goes from 106 to 105. This is it. And at the end, they go, they kind of Project Runway you. They go, Avita's A, good luck. And they send you off. I think that would sell more than the spring game. I think you get more people in the stadium.
That would,
Especially we got
that would
Tim
be
Gunn.
wild.
Get 85,000 people to see who's going to end up on the 105. I don't know,
Be like
man.
Survivor Island inside of Memorial Stadium.
Basically, make it like a 3-week thing. They all come every Friday. You see the same 25 guys coming to practice, and they got to earn points
Like
in
where
order
his
to
head's
stay
at.
in the 105. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, I didn't see this guy here last week. Has he fallen so badly in practice that he's now a part of this competition?
Be like the Running Man.
It'd be like Redemption Island in Survivor, if you remember that.
We just saw it a year and a half ago. We were talking about playing an actual game in the
Against the
spring.
Bison.
Yeah, like where Nebraska would play North Dakota State. You'd play somebody you're not going to play in
Oh,
the
sure.
upcoming season. Now we're like, I don't even know if spring football is going to happen for the public. We're going to practice, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see a game. And especially with the timeline of the calendar, Ohio State, they made a comment on BTN the other day during their celebration. Ohio State starts spring football in 4 weeks.
The quality of life for the coaches that end up making it to the national championship has got to be so low. I mean, to do all that coaching, 16 games, even James Franklin, if his team had won in the semifinals, it would have been 17 games.
Mm-hmm.
To go through that incredible grind of a season, a grind that no other teams before them have had to gone through. And then at the same time, you're dealing with the transfer portal, you're dealing with high school recruiting, you have your eyes on guys, and then as soon as you're done with the national championship game, win or lose, you have to start re-recruiting your own players to stick with the team while also trying to get other guys maybe to come to your team for the next roster. Then
Or helping your DC move out of his office because
Yeah.
you can't stand him.
or that. And then you go through all that, and then 4 weeks, we're back to football. You know how crazy that is? I mean, there is no break. Where is the break?
You sign up for it though. I'm not gonna.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
not gonna go. Oh, cry for me, Ryan Day, who was on Jimmy Fallon last night. Talk about a guy that's turned his life around. Ryan Day was being run out of Columbus, and last night he's on Jimmy Fallon. They sign up for that stuff. Yeah, it's not ideal, but they know what they're getting. Okay, so I don't want to hear, oh man, we got to work 20 hours a day. Okay, then don't be a football coach. Be a radio
Sure.
host. We work 20 hours a day.
You might work 20 hours a day. I don't work 20 hours a day.
He's 22.
Chris
Work
writes in
24 hours.
into the Equitable Bank inbox. Any thoughts on the Penn State DC hire? So Jim Knowles, who was told not to show up at the celebration.
Yeah, that's rough.
Why?
I mean, won national championship. His defense was great.
Yeah, but you know that he
There's
was
bad blood.
he
Yeah.
he was dealing with Penn State. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and there, I guess it's widely reported by Ohio State media that Knowles and Day had a rift. going on. My initial thought is now that's how you hire a DC. So Penn State paid $3 million for Jim Knowles. They're all in on 2025. The Penn State NIL has taken a jump because they're into the retention business. They're able to pay a DC $3 million.
They kept everybody too.
The Georgia Tech and Arizona head coach, that's what they make. The DC at Penn State makes that. Just go get the best one available versus Nebraska promoting a not very good secondary coach.
Yeah. I don't know
They went and got a secondary coach, and by his salary yesterday, they think highly of him. And yet people wonder why Nebraska can never get better. I contend that it just doesn't really matter to upper most levels of the university. They give just enough lip service to make it sound good, but clearly they're fine with being terrible. If not, go out and pay and get the best players and coaches both thoughts. Money is great at Penn State. $3 million is a lot. I think if I'm Jim Knowles was not going to go to Oklahoma because what are you going to go there for 10 months and Brent Venables gets fired and then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm a woebegone, so now I'm on to the next one.
Yeah.
Or are you going
Great
to go to
point.
a place where you look at their athletes because Abdul Carter should be the number one overall pick in the NFL draft from Penn State. They got dudes. Okay, they're able to recruit dudes. So you're not all of a sudden going from the penthouse with Ohio State to the poverty where you're like, oh man, these guys can't play. You're going to a program that has dudes in it that Penn State has to be, if not one of the favorites to win a national championship. So that's why it's attractive. Nebraska's not attractive to a lot of people. That's the problem. Okay, they may have money. Sometimes they may not be willing to spend because, scared money make no money.
Yeah.
But Nebraska's not attractive to everybody. And that's on Nebraska to change the narrative of this is the place to be. The money is good. The life is good. The football is good. The fans are good.
The talent.
This is the place to be. Until you get to that point, then I don't even put Nebraska in a conversation with Penn State. It also is the comfortability of the head coach. Matt Rhule's not on the hot seat. James Franklin, so to speak, they've turned it up because he's watched Michigan and Ohio State, their chief rivals, win national championships the last 2 years, and all of a sudden your quarterback's coming back. You made it to the semifinals. You're like, this is perfect for us. But the upper levels at UNL know how important football is, and Nebraska needs to start winning. And they're not like, you know what, we're going to handcuff them because we don't want them to take away from the attention of the extension of the library because it's an academic place. Hell no. You're like, we got to win at football. We got to win at football now.
I think another thing you have to consider too is that over these last couple of years, Nebraska has given money to coaches, and these coaches have gone in and they haven't had success. And those coaches aren't just going to tell all of their colleagues, well, they weren't successful because I'm bad at my job. They're going to say some things that may not be too endearing about the Nebraska athletic program. And when you have a lot of these guys come in and then leave, and then other coaches hear about it, it doesn't make UNL what it seems to be or what they want to be. And so that's why it's so important that they got to win. You got to start having success because maybe like the Midwest isn't for everybody and living in Lincoln isn't for everybody and so on and so forth. But if you're winning, it's for everybody. Everybody loves to win.
You think so Penn State's all in.
Yeah, and no more excuses, by the way, for James Franklin. It's you got what you wanted. You got K-Tron back, you got Singleton back, you got Aller back, you got the best DC, arguably the best DC. Well, for sure the best DC in all college football because Al Golden is now in Cincinnati coaching for the Bengals. So you got it, man. This is it. If it ain't now, when is it?
So let's say they don't win a national championship. What happens to James? I mean, he's got their OC-DC combo are pretty good, even though the OC hasn't scored in 21 possessions against the new DC from KU to Penn State.
That'll be a very awkward spring practice.
I mean, if you are a Penn State fan, you love this because you know what?
Sure.
You've watched your two rivals win national championships, and you're like, we are Penn State. They even say it.
Yeah.
We are
Penn State.
You have financial resources now that you haven't had in the past, and so you've gone all in. If I'm a fan, I'm like, heck yeah. But I'm also a fan that's like, this doesn't work out. It'll never work out with James Franklin.
If you don't,
so it's national champ. But they put it when you take a DC from the team that just won the national championship, and you pay him $3 million, it's national championship or bust. So there's also part of Nebraska entering the conversation. You'll know if Nebraska's changed the narrative if that game at the end of November is a big deal for both programs, like a big, big deal.
I think for them, it's at this point, make the national championship or bust. I think if they make the Natty and then lose in the Natty, I don't think they would get rid of Franklin. Now, if they were to get to the semifinals and then get blown out in the semifinals by one of the teams that they just can't beat, like a Michigan, like an Ohio State, like an Oregon, then I think, you'd have the conversation of like, all right, maybe it's time to go in a different direction because we've put in as much as we possibly can put into this program and cannot get to the point of being the best, even though we've invested enough to be the best.
Hey, Penn State is driven by Michigan and Ohio State.
Hey,
who is the Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin? Who drives them? Because remember, we spent a while being driven by Wisconsin and Iowa at the top of the West. That still drive Nebraska? Is, hey, we got to overcome Wisconsin and Iowa, and then once we do that, we can focus on Ohio State. At least you're Penn State, you're like, we got to be where Michigan and Ohio State is. If I'm a fan, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Got to spend money. Here is Scott before the break. Scott, thanks for the phone call.
Gentlemen, thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
So I am first of all going to start by saying I don't go to practice, so I don't go to the spring game. But just give me a quantitative number. How many spring games do I have to sacrifice and never have them again to be relevant at the end of November and beat Iowa consistently? I'm all in, buddy.
Scott, thanks for the phone call.
It's a great call. All of them.
Never again.
I'm telling you, I really do.
Don't put the game on BTN. They steal the secrets.
They thought Bell was going to be a guy that they were going to use and that he was going to make an impact. And him going down and then not being able to come back, I think. And then also, too, Bly Hill was a guy that they really, really liked. They went out of their way, watched tape on him, picked him out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he's starting as the other corner in the spring game, and then he goes down. And yes, he ended up coming back and playing, but it definitely affected, his season. When you have, and like they were all gun-ho their very first season being like, we're playing football.
It was enjoyable.
This
past year's spring game with Dylan and Barney and Bonner. And I mean, it was an enjoyable spring game.
I think that injury is
Thanks for the memes.
Maybe why there is this conversation of, could be a thing that it just ends up not happening.
I think those injuries led to the conversation about grass.
Sure.
Which, ironically, North Carolina is going to grass.
What do you mean, ironically? Of course they are. I mean, that guy, I bet it was in the 300-page expose.
It was 400.
The 400-page book written by Bill Belichick. I guarantee you, page probably 8 was, hey, you're going to put in some bluegrass here.
Isn't it interesting when you have a football coach that has some power and says, this is what we're going to do, and the athletic director in the athletic department says, yes, sir?
Well, I think it was very telling that Rule, also, by the way, first off, Rule loves Belichick, has talked about Belichick, a lot. And the fact
he's a wicked winner.
They both come from the NFL, and they both know the injury history and the studies of grass versus turf. And so it's Matt Rule, we were talking about this. I was talking about this a year ago with people at the press conferences that, he went and he did it at the practice fields. One of the first things he did was, all right, we're not doing turf practice fields anymore. We're installing grass here. I wonder when they're going to do it at Memorial.
Well, it took Trev Leaving and Troy Dannon to get here to say, we're going grass.
60-degree day in January. Why not?
It was done. But, So maybe Belichick is all in at North Carolina.
He signed his contract. They showed the signed contract.
Is it still $1 million buyout on June 1?
I don't know. Saints head coach, Bill Belichick.
Who dat? I think Mike McCarthy today is going to get announced as the Saints coach.
They interviewed Kellen Moore just today.
Maybe I should adopt them. I did love the Dome Patrol.
It was one of the first notifications I got that Kellen Moore is having an interview.
Is he bringing Goddard and Barkley?
No. And Juergens and Mailata and Becton and Thomas and Dickerson and
Randall Cunningham, Fred
Smith
Barnett.
And Brown and Shipley and Hurts and Pickett.
It's a good roster.
It's a hell of a roster.
That's a good roster.
At defense too.
I mean, if you were
still lose the Super Bowl,
how did Nakobe Dean fall? The dude was one of the best linebackers in the country on one of the on almost dynasty in Georgia, and he fell. And I know why he fell, because he was small and whatever. But it didn't matter that he was small.
He fell because if you go to Georgia, you can only play for one NFL team.
Yeah, that's the Eagles. And man, look what they've done. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, N'Kobe Dean. When they had DeAndre Swift last year, they had him. Kaylee Ringo. So I
That's
mean,
right. They should have done
talk about it. Talk about a GM who just has perfectly mastered the art of no. We're going to take this guy because he's super, super talented and he measures well, and guys like Quinyon Mitchell, and then also at the same time goes,
By the
oh,
way, hey, he's a
baller.
He scares me on Super Bowl Sunday.
He's a baller.
He's been a dude.
And we're going to take a guy like that who played at a smaller school, but we know he's got the measurables. But on the other side, we're going to go and take Cooper DeJean, who everyone thinks is a safety and not an actual corner. But we're going to take him because, man, he was a stud at Iowa.
Brian Christopherson joins us in about 40 minutes. We got plenty to talk about. Nebraska is back. They started winter conditioning.
Yeah.
And mat drills are back. Now,
How long do you think you could last in a mat drill?
I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm out of eligibility.
I think
That's all you, man.
Hey,
Let us know.
technically, if the NCAA releases this new rule, I have one more year of eligibility.
Oh, you
To
talk
5
about
and
a
5?
bit.
But you're already out.
Oh, I can't go back in?
Could you enroll
No.
back in?
No.
Can I enroll back into grad school? I would.
That'd be
Good-
great for content.
Good luck. My days of schooling is over.
Yeah, mine
That was too much for me.
This
I
is
wrote-
my school now. This is my grad school right here.
I went
is.
to school for 20 years. That was way too much.
I went
Too
to sc-
much.
I
Too
went
much,
to-
and I don't have like letters in front of my name or after my name. And
Dr. Sharp.
Gary Sharp, PhD.
I mean, you would think you're in school that long. I mean, you start in first grade. You're like, oh, this is going to be a 20-year slog.
Is that what you were thinking?
I remember saying
sandbox?
that. Yeah.
When
Looking
sister-
at Susie Joe,
Hey,
talking to Susie.
when-
Man, I can't
when-
believe we're going to be here for
when
another
my
20
first grade
years.
teacher, Sister Monica Mary, was like, telling us things, I was like, oh God, this starts a 20-year slog.
Fired up a lung
It's like you're
dart and
doing a
sat
bit.
by the Legos.
Like you're doing a bit in the clink.
We're back with more Gary and Matt. After this is 1620 The Zone.
Hey, this week's Zone Deal is for the Woodcliff Restaurant, voted Omaha's best outdoor patio. Be a great day for it. It's perfect for a romantic dinner for two or a family dinner. Enjoy all of Woodcliff's delicious food with a perfect view of Woodcliff Lake, Matt. Don't miss Thursday's weekly special burger or Friday's fish special. About that time of the year. With this week's deal, get two $25 gift vouchers, a $50 value for just $25 on sale this Friday, January the 31st at 9 a.m. Get all the deals at 1620zone.com.
You were talking earlier about your prowess as the new Jim Feist. He was an old-time gambler. It was on TV. You have a TV show.
More so Mike North.
But not Peter?
Not familiar with Mike North.
670, the score guy back in Chicago. Him and I worked together. Great guy.
Is he the guy who got in trouble?
I don't know if Mike probably did.
Said something on air.
Mike probably did get in trouble.
If you're doing it right.
That kind of checks out. That's
Old school guy?
Old school guy. Yeah, definitely checks out. But a gem to work with. One of the best people that I've ever worked with. Not a joke.
Till us.
So I have to tell you a quick gambling story. Omaha men's basketball, by the way, playing really well. And they were a 4.5-point favorite on Saturday night. Up by 17 at halftime. Oral Roberts comes back. The game gets tight. Never got below 4 points. Omaha wins by 8, so they cover. The amount of people that respond to Omaha basketball tweets that have a gambling interest is insane.
You think it's UNLV.
So a step further, a guy emails me DM me yesterday. I don't follow him.
Sure.
There was something I didn't recognize. And he's like, "Hey, you guys are playing well." And so I immediately know he's talking about Omaha men's basketball. He goes, "I just want to thank you. Omaha has made me a lot of money this year." And I was like, ding, ding, ding. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Omaha is 15-4 against the spread.
Wow.
Matt?
Yes.
No, I don't do college basketball. I did have my PAP system this year that worked beautifully for me. Pick against Purdue.
Oh, okay.
Purdue was like
kind of like that.
Purdue was like 2-11 against the spread. And when I saw them play Notre Dame in week 2, I go, this team is awful. This team is terrible. And Vegas just never figured out that they were that bad. And so I started hammering them. And one of the games that I didn't bet was when they took Illinois to overtime, because I had buddies who came to me and said, "Matt, not this one, because Purdue, for whatever reason, always plays us close at home. We don't know why. It just happens. It's always been don't bet." Okay, cool. So I didn't bet it, and they went to, and I thank God I didn't, and I just I hammered them.
Wow.
PAP.
He really does
Right.
belong here.
Pick against
That's
Purdue.
great.
Speaking of Purdue, did you hear the story about Ryan Walters in West Lafayette? So
No.
he was in the process of building a house,
Oh no.
a $5 million house in
no.
West Lafayette that just got done.
Oh no.
And
It's now on the market.
there's really nobody in that area
Who would
that
buy
has
that?
financially that has
Oh no.
because Barry Odom, you would think, okay, Barry Odom's taken over. Maybe because you've heard that in the past, like coaches that are leaving, they'll be like, "Hey, you want to buy my house? You want
Yeah.
to live in my house?" But there's nobody in the West Lafayette area that probably has $5 million that they'd spend on this like extravagant house. But yeah, Ryan Walters started the process. They like, "Hey, we're going to build our dream home. We're going to be here for a while." He gets the Ziggy after 2 years. The house just got done. It's $4.9 million.
Probably
and now,
on
and,
Zillow.
and now
This
it'll
is great.
probably sit, I don't know, empty.
Jillian Ellison of Journal and Courier
As opposed to Perrier.
writes, what is the style of the home? How many bedrooms and bath are there? Like, goes in this whole very TLC detailed.
Finished basement.
How many kitchens does it have? What other amenities are in the home? Interested in taking a look? That's funny. And now he's got to go all the way to Seattle, which is not an easy place to move your life to.
He's living in a studio in downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
It's not-
$4,000
It's
a
not
month.
exactly like Seattle is also the most financially able place for you to live and move and buy. I mean, it can get a little expensive over there in Washington
A
State.
little?
Buckeye Ross, who's still celebrating. By the way, I have no fear. Ryan Day, who Chip Kelly is being courted by the Texans, and Chip Kelly, before he ended up at Ohio State last year, kicked the tires on NFL OC jobs. So Ryan Day may have to replace both coordinators. They're going to have to replace some NFL talent, but they are Ohio State. And I have Ryan Day has made good hires since he has been at Ohio State, and they happen to own a bank. Ross says, more of an issue about Knowles, more of an issue with Larry Johnson. Lots of dynamics at play with this move to Creepy Valley, though with desired scheme and philosophy. But it won't get better for him under control freak James Franklin. Penn State isn't winning a natty. Drew Aller sucks, and they have no wide receivers. So crazy this past year, they literally had no wide receivers.
And they got the 5-star from Ohio State, Julian Fleming, who was supposed to shore up, who was supposed to be the guy for that team. And then Nebraska was in the running to get Fleming and really, really wanted to get Fleming until, things went the way that they did. But I'm telling you right now, James Franklin, this is a statement from Penn State saying, okay, like it's almost as if by hiring Knowles and going all in and doing this, like they've kind of put him on the hot seat. Like they've kind of said to him, all right, like you have no more excuses now. Like this is it. Like if you don't get to where you think you can go and where we think you should be, it does not matter if you win 11 games, but then lose to Ohio State in the quarterfinal or lose to Oregon in the semifinal. Here's your blueprint. This is everything you got. You got your 3 key offensive pieces back in Singleton, Allen, and Aller. You're gonna have to do your job and go and get wide receivers and go and get someone who can replace Tyler Warren, who's going to the NFL draft, who will more than likely be a first-round draft selection. Like, okay, here you go. Oh my God. If the Chiefs got Tyler Warren,
get ready for it.
That'd be crazy.
I think
he'll date the next pop
that
star.
would be crazy.
I think if the Chiefs win, Travis Kelce retires.
As he should.
You think they propose? Is there
no
on
absolutely
stage
not
sponsored?
No, with those two
sponsored?
It will be
no. They'll have a shotgun wedding.
We'll do it at Oklahoma.
TikTok has a lot of Chiefs
TikTok.
content on my TikTok.
I
always like how Taylor Swift introduces herself. Hi, I'm Taylor. Like, okay, everybody in the world knows who you are. She always does that.
Do you work here?
You know what? That is very. I think that's really cool because she does. Like, they were walking off the field and Bobby Bell, who is one of the greatest Chiefs of all time.
Yes,
he was on the field and Travis recognized him and he called him out and he went over and he dapped him up.
Yes,
and so they're chatting. And she's standing right next to him, and of course she doesn't know who Bobby Bell is. If she does, I would marry. I would marry her if Taylor Swift knew who Bobby Bell was, because Bobby Bell is one of the greatest Chiefs of all time. Also, one of the greatest Minnesota Golden Gophers of all time. But they pause in their conversation, and she looks at him and she shakes his hand, and she goes, "Hi, I'm Taylor." And I thought that's pretty cool because you could shake their hand and not say who you are, but she always says, "Hi, I'm Taylor." That's kind of cool.
Travis?
She is a nice, beautiful, uber talented.
Try telling that to
human. She's always conducted herself in that way. Unfortunately,
am I wrong?
No.
And unfortunately,
Taylor
for her,
and JJ Watt.
Up to this point, clearly she's just had a terrible radar for people that she wants to be in a relationship with. But now that she's found this other,
I wasn't available.
Seems like very nice, very talented, very athletic.
You were spoken for by Libby.
I mean, it's just, it seems like look, Travis Kelce very much respects her relationship. They legitimately look like they love each other.
You're not
by the way,
do that public, proposal.
I love seeing her in the box.
I would hate that.
That would be funny.
There's the videos of her in the box, like freaking out in the box, like swearing and saying like
She's
stuff and everything like that.
I
It's
swear
great.
in that stadium every time I go there.
I was just looking at Penn State's schedule.
I love that. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Nevada, FIU, Villanova are the non-con.
Terrible.
Then they have a week off, and then Oregon comes to Beaver Stadium.
Villanova will get them ready for that.
They play at Iowa, then have a week off. Then they play at Ohio State. Then they have Indiana at home. Then they are in East Lansing, and then Nebraska comes there on the 22nd of November for what may or may not be the whiteout.
That's not an easy schedule. The non-con is a joke, but
interesting. They have an off week before Oregon and an off week before a trip to Columbus.
That's good, strategic. Now I don't know James Franklin's record off the top of my head. but you have to assume it's unless every time they play Ohio State or those top teams, they're coming off the bye. Unless it's that, I'm assuming his bye weeks are pretty decent records. So look, you're going to have to play. So obviously you get Ohio State and Oregon, who are going to be, preseason top 1, top 2 in the Big Ten. And then Indiana, it's still looking to be that Indiana is going to be competitive. Now, I don't think they'll have lightning in a bottle like they did the previous season, but with what Cignetti did and the talent he acquired and the good coaching that he put together there, you got to think that Indiana isn't going to be the Indiana of old anymore. We just roll them.
Didn't Indiana also retain their coordinator, OC? Wasn't he courted? And they stepped up, and I think they kept him.
I believe they kept him.
Speaking of coaching, there was news yesterday, and really, well, I'm not going to say it's not a big deal because it's Nebraska volleyball, and she's the
I saw that
The
too.
governor.
She's the governor. So Jordan Larson has left the Nebraska volleyball program. Not really a surprise to me. She was there for 2 years. I think in all my interaction with Jordan, and let me just, it's crazy that anybody thought that she would be a serious candidate to be a successor to John Cook. That was never going to be the case. Never, ever, never, never, ever, never. I wonder about Jordan because she's playing right here in Omaha for Love B, and she's late 30s. I mean, credit to her. She's still playing. She's not at the level that she was, but she's still playing.
She's 38.
Okay, so I mean,
I pulled a
38
muscle
years
Yanni
old as a
the other
female,
day.
and she's still playing at a high level.
At a high level.
Not the highest level, but I mean, you're coming off the Olympics, so
Really
she's
damn
playing
good.
here in Omaha. She has a vested interest in Love B. I imagine that they are going to keep her heavily involved as the world of volleyball, pro volleyball in this country changes and leagues merge or standalones, that she'll go from playing to maybe being not only just a spokesperson, but a
boss.
commish of the
Oh.
league.
I like that. Yeah.
But the one thing I've always wondered about Jordan, and granted, in this state, everybody knows who she is. You should see little girls who, they weren't born when she was playing at Nebraska, more than likely, when they see her and
know.
getting her autograph, and even people that know the sport. I mean, Jordan Larson is the GOAT. But all my interactions with her, I still don't think she knows what she wants to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. She's 38 years old, but I think that's her. She doesn't know exactly what she wants to do, and she's still trying to figure it out.
Relatable.
But I get why Nebraska has to find a full-time assistant coach because she was trying to play and also coach. And I don't think there's any other place than Nebraska that would allow her to do that because John Cook understands. I mean, she's playing in the Olympics.
Was she not playing it when she was coaching at Texas? Was she just full-time on Texas?
She was like in between.
Yeah, okay. Well,
she's gone through some things in her personal life that she left Austin for a reason, came back to Nebraska. She got a spot on the staff, but not a surprise that it was only 2 years. So I hope she finds what she wants to do, but I think her being heavily involved in that volleyball league would be the best thing that happened because she's one of the best spokespersons for the sport inside and outside of this country. So now John Cook's got to find, and I mean his inbox is filling up with people that are going to come in,
succeed.
and he's going to need like somebody that I've heard it explained to me yesterday. I was asking somebody about it because I don't know enough of that world. They're like, really need somebody that's can work with their outside hitters. And if they find that person, then they're set and they're going to get paid well. And they're at a place where, you're competing for a national championship every year.
I haven't had any interactions with Jordan. And so I can't speak to her as well as you can speak to her and her personally. But I will say this, and this is what I believe, when you're successful to that level in athletics, it's more than just being athletic. It's being smart. It's being driven. It's having a really good head on your shoulders and using your talents right in the right spaces. And I think with a person as talented as she is, she's got a lot of options. She's got a lot of things that she can do. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have given her different options within the sport, whether it be coaching, whether it be she's still playing, whether it be, like you said, having a bigger role in some of these leagues. And she has been in the trenches of this and been in so many different aspects of volleyball and can speak not only to just her experiences as a player, but her experiences as a coach and her experiences coaching with the best coaches in the country at the best programs in the country, Nebraska and Texas. And so she's just so experienced and knowledgeable about the sport in general, where she can kind of go in whatever avenue that she wants to go into, and whatever avenue she chooses to go into, I think she will end up being incredibly successful at it. And I think the sport of volleyball will benefit from that.
Isn't it wild that there's 2 jobs in this state that are 2 highly successful head coaches that have been at their programs for at least 15 years, that comes up the most of? I wonder who's going to replace them. Who's going to be the next guy to replace Mac?
Yeah.
And then the one that is just at least once a week, there'll be a discussion about who do you think is going to replace John Cook? Well, I'm telling you, your one call is to Louisville, and then you go from there.
I agree.
You were a Jordan Larson successor person, weren't you?
No, I was Jalen. I asked about
Also a fantastic candidate.
Fantastic candidate to do it. And he's been in the program, and he's been a great coach and very active, and it clearly has a great relationship with the players. Look, John Cook is going to coach however long John Cook wants to coach, and that's absolutely his right, and he's the greatest coach in volleyball history, okay?
Whoa.
And
guy from Penn State that's retired is going to be calling up.
He's what he's done, not only just from a record perspective and a championship perspective, but also impact on the sport perspective with the sellout streak and the attention and Volleyball Day in Nebraska and what he's built and what he's cultivated here. I don't know. I don't think there are 2 pro volleyball teams in Nebraska if Nebraska volleyball doesn't have the success that they've had under John Cook. So all that to say, he's going to coach however long he's going to want to coach. And it's going to be a very coveted job. And no matter who gets the job, they have great candidates in order to do that. And I think that Nebraska volleyball, you can say confidently now, will be okay when he decides to move on, whenever he chooses to do that.
Did you guys, either one of you go Friday night to Ralston?
No.
I got as far as my couch.
I just heard that Lexi Rodriguez is not playing that much.
Oh,
Well, she's got Arantes, too, who's in the same position. So, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I think that's one of those things where she's learning under basically the woman who she just broke the record for most digs in Nebraska volleyball history. It's good for her. She'll learn under her and she'll become better.
They had a sellout. What, about 3,000 over at Ralston?
It looked packed. It looked a lot of people. There were a lot of people there too. I think like almost the entire Nebraska volleyball team went to that game as well.
that's
So,
nice.
yeah.
Team building.
See what happens with those leagues, man. It's a weird world, professional volleyball. There is a lot of things going on, a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of people who are trying to benefit off of the sports.
A lot of people take that their role way too serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Way too serious.
And it's a little, I don't know, it's a little disheartening to.
I wish they would combine.
I do too.
I think if you had
I
everybody
don't
under
think
one umbrella.
I don't think it's a good look for the sport to have 3
No.
leagues and everybody's
It's
fighting
It's
for-
confusing
It
in
is
this
confusing.
town because the Supernova's got a great thing going. They pack the chai, and then you got one team that's playing in Ralston, but yet they may have the better players.
Yes.
If they were all under one umbrella, imagine what pro volleyball in this country would look like. I mean, you could build a Omaha-based team strictly off Nebraska and Creighton grads.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you'd be pretty dominant.
You'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Be pretty damn good.
All right. Brian Christopherson coming up in about 15 minutes on 1620 The Zone. All right, Brian Christopherson is going to join us here in a little bit. I got a ranker for you. You ready?
Yep.
So, 2 things. Let's rank 2 things here.
Ranker. I hardly know her.
Philadelphia Eagles. Are you ready? Maybe we'll play on-air Sporkle.
Oh, heck yeah.
Are we in a discussion, by the way, that Nick Sirianni has accomplished more than anybody else as a Philadelphia Eagle head coach?
Ever?
So Andy Reid is the all-time winningest coach for the 2 teams in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Sirianni is 48-20, and he's in the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. But if you say, you know what, if you had to hire one guy out of the NFL and you can't get Andy Reid, how far down before you get to a guy like Sirianni? I'm not a huge Sirianni fan because I think he appeals to the Philadelphia fan. But I would entertain a conversation that he might be the top coach of the Eagles. 2 Super Bowls. Andy went to 1.
So
Peterson won 1, but wasn't,
the question of where does he rank if he were to be available, like if all the coaches got fired and there was just, you had 32 teams and they're all vying, there was a pool, right? Where would he go? I think it's an interesting question of like, would you take him over that kind of group of guys who've had a lot of regular season success but haven't won a lot of playoff games as of late? Would you take him over your John Harbaughs, over your Mike Tomlins? Would you take him over your Jim Harbaugh? Would you take him over a Sean Payton?
Mm-hmm.
Would you take him over these kind of more historical names where more than likely they'll end up in some sort of football Hall of Fame, whether it be college or the NFL? Would you take him over those guys? I think it's an interesting convo because I think a lot of people knee-jerk would say no, but then you look at the fact he's 48-20 with a 70% win percentage, and he's 5-3 in the playoffs with 2 Super Bowl appearances. And he's been coaching for 2021, 2022, like 4 seasons. So it's a great question. I think that he's been very fortunate to have Howie Roseman as his GM, but at the same time, we can't act as if other coaches don't get super talented rosters and then win all these games.
Any head coach that has a bad GM that's really good?
Say that again. I didn't really.
Any good head coach that has a bad GM?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So they're like hand in hand.
Exactly.
It's like, again, we could have Ryan Day and Nick Sirianni win championships in football, and both in, September, where people were like, you need to be out of here.
When he was taunting his own fans after barely beating Cleveland, everybody wanted his head on a stick and wanted him gone. And we're calling him an airhead.
Now, here's the other ranker, because I got in this conversation with a friend last night. Pull up the 2020 NFL quarterback draft class.
Okay. Is that the
Joe Burrow class?
Okay.
But it also includes Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Tua, and Jordan Love.
Yes.
If you had to rank behind Joe Burrow the rest of that class, where they are right now, and Jordan Love is a little bit later to the party because he didn't play right away. So Joe Burrow, we agreed, number 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2.
Hurts.
I'm with you.
Hurts.
Good call. Ahead of Herbert.
Ahead Herbert.
And then
Tua.
And then Jordan Love.
And then Love.
Isn't that an amazing draft class?
It's
one is played in the Super Bowl. One is played in the Super Bowl now twice.
Yeah. One can't win a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is the most hot or cold quarterback I've ever seen, and one can't stay on the field.
And I think career touchdown passes, I think Herbert is only 2 behind Burrow.
Can you name another quarterback? I'm looking at all the names right now. Can you name another quarterback taken in that draft? Because this is one of the very rare ones.
They're like 6th and 7th round guys, right?
4, 5, 6, 7. If you can name one, I'd be mightily impressed.
Just remember Andy Reid in a Hawaiian shirt.
Because none of them panned out. It's one of the very rare drafts where it's like all of the mid-round quarterbacks, none of them started, none of them played, none of them did anything.
Was one of them a Steeler quarterback?
No. It's mainly
Trey Lance.
it's all the seventh round ones are NFC, but all the early round ones were AFC.
Jake Fromm.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
That was a good one. For Jacob Eason. You remember Jacob Eason?
Yes, I
He
do.
got drafted
Remember
by the
Tony
Colts,
Eason.
fourth round. Yeah. No, that's a crazy draft. I've never seen that before. None of I don't think any of them played a game because their stats are just completely empty here. Yeah, I would go Burrow, Hurts, Herbert, Tua, Love. What's the ranker? What's the thing you got there?
No, I would do that.
That
Burrow
was
is
it?
number one. Yes.
That was it.
Wasn't so the Jets drafting Zach Wilson set them back, but also in that same draft, guy from FIU, James Morgan,
Attaboy.
wasn't he a fourth round pick?
Fourth round pick.
Yeah. What the?
19th.
How many games in the NFL has James Morgan started?
I don't think he ever played one.
Now that's also the draft that Nate Stanley was drafted by the Vikings
at the very
from
end.
Iowa.
Look at you.
Because I looked at the draft because there were 4 guys in the first round.
It took you from to be like, yeah, okay, get on a roll. I think see James Morgan, fourth round pick. He's from Green Bay.
Hawaii had a quarterback that was drafted.
He hasn't.
Tennessee.
I James Morgan. James Morgan hasn't played one game in the NFL. Not even as a backup. Hasn't played one game in the National Football League.
How many GMs has the Jets had?
Jets have had, I think, let me go back to my list here. I think it's 4 since 2012.
They drafted Ken O'Brien over Danny Marino.
And by the way,
Bring back Richard Todd.
it's
He
4
was good.
since 2012, and I didn't
Honor
count their interim GM.
Yeah.
So technically it's 5.
Isn't it interesting with the Jets, real quick, that one of the, if not the most influential person in the history of professional football is Joe Namath, who played for the Jets. And the most iconic moment in Jets football history is the finger wag coming off the field after winning the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Because of Namath, the AFL and the NFL came together.
I think it also was
Years
just
later,
him
he
wearing
tried
a
to kiss
fur
Susie
coat.
Colbert.
He was. Yes, he was.
First Hall of Fame quarterback, same touchdown to interception ratio, 1-to-1.
All right, Brian Christopherson joins us next to kick off the last hour. Gary Matt on 1620 The Zone. Oh, wow. Just announced Kevin Hart is going to be at Baxter Arena this summer.
Like doing a special?
No, he's working there.
He's on his, he's taking tickets.
Mhm.
His tour, Acting My Age tour. He's going to be at Baxter Arena. I went and saw Kevin Hart at the Chai, and they took my phone away.
Real quick.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah, I saw Joe Rogan at PBA, and they took my phone away. And then some guy took a selfie. We were in the UFC fighter section, and so there was like literally Anthony Lionheart Smith, who's like at the time the third ranked light heavyweight in the world. I'm like, I feel safe. Like if anyone messes with us, like we have one of the baddest dudes on the planet at Baxter. That's a little smaller venue.
It is.
For Kevin Hart.
That's a hell of a get for Baxter
I
Arena.
know.
June 22nd.
What happens when you guys are winning so much?
That's true. Everybody wants to be around winners, hockey and men's basketball. See you in Vermilion tomorrow night. Yeah. Here is Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. Good Tuesday morning.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How many comedians have you seen live?
Ooh.
Oh, like 3.
Smaller venue or larger venue?
Almost all large. I've seen the most recent one I saw. He's been on a little bit of a heater. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but he's kind of my deadpan style. Is Nate Bargatze,
Yes.
who was in Omaha last. He's been in Omaha a few times, but I saw him. And I've seen Seinfeld, as that would not surprise anybody, probably like 2 or 3 times.
See,
That's about it.
I think Seinfeld likes Nebraska because he's been to the Lead Center, and him and Gaffigan 2 weeks ago were right here in Omaha. I think Seinfeld likes. I think he likes the Midwest, like Omaha, Kansas City, Des Moines.
What's the deal about Renza? What's the deal? Have we not learned, people? That's terrible. I'm sorry, Brian. I just ruined
No,
your
that's
favorite
okay.
movie.
Stick to Romo.
Love your Romo. The first time I sat down to watch Jerry in person, I was a big fan of the show, and I just quote it still 30 years later all the time. But I honestly, for about 10 minutes before it started, I got a little nervous. Like I was like, "What if he sucks?" You know, like,
oh wow,
like
wow, yeah.
That's part of the reason why I've only seen like 2 or 3 comedians, because I wouldn't deal well with like watching guys figure it out while they're in midstream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like watching someone write a story that's like halfway through and all this stuff. So you have to have a certain level of where you can take embarrassment for someone where they're struggling up there up front, and you're okay with it. And I'm not good at that. So it has to be like a polished act kind of.
It's one of those like don't meet your heroes types of things.
Yeah, it was. But then he came out, and in the first 5 minutes, he had me. And,
yeah. Well, whether you go to the big arena or here in town, we know the Funny Bone, which by the way is relocating. We have a new location of the Funny Bone. We like comedy in Omaha. Like a lot of comedians come through here. We also like to discuss depth charts and stuff, and we're trying to figure out the 105. I know how you like that transition. But
we do.
Yeah. Before we talk about the offensive linemen on campus, you wrote about it, and I'm curious. So I look at Nebraska's quarterback room, and it's kind of an interesting room. There's some young guys in there, but you, at least at the top of the chart, have a veteran guy that has played 13 games and has a big-time upside. What do you think has to happen in the spring, BC, whether it be the Purdue transfer, the Northwestern College transfer who will be in year 2, that Nebraska feels comfortable enough that Heinrich Haarberg isn't even a consideration anymore to play a little quarterback?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a big part of it's going to be Marcos Davila and how he looks. He's probably the top name I think of. Graham Stad's a really nice bonus to have. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's the guy it's a few levels down, and we always have to remember that. So you're not sure exactly how that would translate if he ever got thrown into like a Big Ten game. But I do know this about Jalen. He's just sharp as can be, and such an instrumental guy in that room to help guys figure it out. And he's going to be a big help, I think, to Marcos Davila too. But I think of the kid from Purdue coming in as sort of the answer to your question there. Does he sort of just keep rising where you're like, okay, he's in a spot where if he had to go give us some snaps, we feel like he would be able to process it, have that quick blinker, all that stuff. So I think he's the answer to the question. Obviously, TJ Lateef, we shouldn't just slam the door on, but he's just starting, and I do think there is a great use, even for Davila, that he had a year to just process college football up close. Also, as I say that, it's a reminder of how we should always keep in mind, what Dylan did last year is attached to a guy playing right away out of high school at that level and understanding things to that degree. So I think we always got to remind ourselves of that.
Brian, do you think them not getting a running back in the transfer portal has more to do with Emmett Johnson being the guy, or their confidence in their other guys in that room, whether it be Parker, Booth, Nelson, or Ives, being able to maybe not only just be two, but take that next step to one?
I don't know if I'd say confidence, or if they have just a higher level of curiosity or thought that they could be better than some of us on the outside looking in. And I tend to probably be naive and nod my head too much when coaches say stuff, because I've always am under the idea, hey, they have a lot on the line. If a coach is saying Quinton Ives is pretty close, or they feel like he can really come in and help, I keep in mind that could be really true. I do not like to do the now or never thing with guys.
Yeah.
But when you're a third year running back like Ives and you haven't really played yet, it probably is pretty close to that category. I think we'd all agree for him here. So that I think they're looking at it like, hey, they have this spring for Ives, for Makai Nelson, who I think they've liked behind the scenes to show how close are they, and maybe one of those incoming freshmen really have the goods where you feel like they can play early. That is a position where we have seen guys get on the field right out of high school. So maybe Jamarian Parker or a Booth or something really makes it interesting by the time we get to the fall. But I do think basically the thought is, hey, we've got a spring to look at these guys. And if we need to add, there's one more phase where you could possibly do that. But Emmett Johnson at the top, though, finishing like he did, obviously, probably helps him sleep a little better.
Safe to say that Rocco, who is on campus from the Notre Dame transfer, that if we're not drawing this out because we have some limitations on getting into school so you can participate in spring ball, that today is the day. Is if he leaves Nebraska and we hear nothing, that he's not coming to Nebraska?
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that on this one. It's strange that way. The timing, they're tied up against it. Obviously, a player worth looking at. His dad, by the way, Mark Spindler, who played at Pitt, played 9 years in the NFL. I was watching a funny clip about him when he was being drafted. I think it was like old school ESPN, had someone at his house, and they're just at a little round table, and they think he's getting the call from a team to get drafted on air, and so it's a really exciting moment. And then it turns out that wasn't the case. So he hadn't been drafted yet. And then it happens again. It happened twice where they thought he was getting drafted. He didn't get drafted till the third round. So he had to wait a while. And then he ended up playing 9 years in the league, which was pretty good. So funny story attached to the guy who's visiting today. But Rocco, he started 23 games for Notre Dame, obviously, to be on a team that made the national championship game. I know he started and then he was out, and then he got a chance after injury to come back in, but he made the most of it. And certainly he could be a strong interior option for Nebraska that, allows them to be flexible with their pieces. I wrote the other day, sort of attached to this idea of if someone like Spindler joined, Justin Evans, I think, is a guy that gets talked over a lot, but I think his versatility, whether he could be a center or guard, is pretty important in all this too. So it's a guy, though, that gives you a lot of experience and options on the chessboard, I think, and that's always really important.
So the interior, and Matt and I were talking about this earlier, and Matt likes Evans at center, and I think that might be a better spot for him. But Sam Sledge, he seems like the heir apparent to Ben Scott. But you kind of have your interior taken care of. Do you know, and I only bring this up because he was recruited as a tackle, but he didn't play in an offense where he did a lot of pass blocking at Logan Magnolia. And we're talking about Grant Bricks.
Yeah.
But the last depth chart before the Pinstripe Bowl, he was listed as the backup right guard to Lutovsky. Do you have a sense, is he a guard or a tackle at
Yeah.
Nebraska?
I don't know yet. I think he's one of those, could be either still. And I've learned that over time that coaches sometimes look at him as there's certain guys who are definitely like, this is what you are. This is what this guy can specialize with his body type. But I think they're pretty open to moving guys around at times, and maybe trying them here and then trying them there during the spring. So I haven't shut the door by any means on him as a tackle, but I found that interesting too as we got into the season that Brix was at guard. And, he made the travel roster against Iowa. And so that was like a step for him. And that's a big part of this conversation, guys. I mean, we can get lost in the sauce with all the portal talk, but they need that crew of linemen, which on paper, it feels like they've recruited well, who are now entering years 2 and 3 to be like guys who matter as far as at least mixing it up, where you feel like they are whether they're a starter or not, you're like hearing about like Brix is pushing someone, or Sam Sledge in year 3 is either the guy or he's like right on the cusp of being the guy. Jason Machacek, Grant Segrin is a really interesting walk-on. Like, I know everybody, when they do their 105s, they like X out walk-ons and just like, there's your 105. I mean, it's not going to be quite that simple. There's going to be some guys like that the staff really loves. And obviously Gatula, I thought for a first year, what he was asked to do at left tackle did pretty well. I understand why you want to go get veterans and boost that competition and, make a guy earn it, like to be the guy again. But I do think Gunner at least got what was a bad deal with those injuries at that position last year. Now, I guess you can look at it as a blessing in disguise because he has that experience under his belt.
Okay, so if it's Gatula and Pritchett at the 2 tackles, and then let's say they go and get Spindler, so then you have Latovsky and Spindler at the guards, and then it's Justin Evans at center, how would you feel about that offensive line?
I feel okay about it. I'm interested too in the coach when we talk to him next. I think it's got to be a press conference where some final, not final, but statements are made, or where certain guys, like, are they available or are they not? Sure. Like, sort of deal. Like, where, like Prohaska and Corcoran, you want the head coach at some point to, that he can get asked, like, where's their situation? They're still listed on the roster. I know they've dealt with a lot of injuries. So what's up with them? What's up with like Demetrius Bell? How has he come back at wide receiver? But to your question of those guys, I feel okay about it. I'm not going to like jump up and down, but I feel like Latovsky was, I thought he was like kind of under the radar, sneaky, having a solid season where he developed and improved like within the games compared to what we had seen before. So I think if he takes one more step off of that, he can be really solid. He's another person everybody kind of looks over. And Justin Evans, I always go back to like media days, and you're like talking to Ty Robinson or somebody who goes against him all the time. And him and Nash would always say he was the toughest dude to deal with, like for a D lineman, like he's just so strong and has such great lower body strength. And the reason why I have intrigue about him as a center possibility is he's done it before. He was recruited sort of with that in mind at one point, and I think he's got the mind for it too, where he's got that command center. But Gary's right. Sam Sledge you got to add into that mix, and there's going to be other options. But Evans' versatility there helps you.
So when the Super Bowl happens, once it's over, Nebraska gets their defensive line coach. They haven't hired a special teams coach. Do you think that the future special teams coach is still working?
Possibly.
And I think you know where I'm going here. The name that's being mentioned has a connection to Rule as a special teams consultant at Temple, and it's Tyler Brown, who is the special teams assistant right now for the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't know for sure where they're going with it, so I don't want this to sound like I'm leaning all the way into it, but certainly the timing and the fact that he, is still coaching right now makes people try to connect the dots or think that could be a possibility. And the background they have together. His dad's also a longtime special teams coach too, and he's been with the Eagles, I think, 4 years now. So pretty good experience there. Also, someone like that I always consider as a possibility with Rule because it fits the template when you look at his hires over time. Like, he's always been someone who is like really into like sort of helping the next generation of coaches, like, not just because he as a charity act because he thinks they can do it, but that excites him. I think he always remembers when he got his chance and moved up, and he does it for others. And I don't mind it. I mean, we're seeing coaches younger. I mean, didn't the Bears hire like a 28-year-old offensive coordinator?
Declan Doyle.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that as like a snarky remark. I'm just saying like you got to get used to. I mean, that's the way it is. Like I got over the Garrett McGuire's age thing really quick. I was like, yeah, that guy's been around his dad in football since he was 3 years old, thinking about like the grease board and X's and O's. And so guys are getting into bigger positions at younger ages. And that coach you're mentioning, Tyler Brown, when I look at his resume, that it would make sense as a possibility. So I definitely don't discount that. And then Terry Braden, D-line coach with the Chiefs. I'll say this again, talking to guys who've been around him, like DiCaprio Bootle was in that locker room at one time. He's like, that guy had the respect throughout that building. I mean, so I think that was a hire that computes on a lot of levels too. And you can tell Terry Braden obviously wanted to keep winning like they have, but he's been engaged in the Husker process too over the last month or two. And I think he's really fired up to get that chapter going as well.
So doing quick math here, Brown, I'm looking at his bio right now on the Eagles page. It does mention the fact from 2014 to 2015, he worked as a special teams consultant under Rule. He'd be 29 years old. So just for reference there. Brian, bigger impact in terms of return, Deshaun Singleton or Javen Wright?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have to answer one. Can't say Ty. That's not good radio.
I'm glad you noticed that.
No, I will say, I'll say Javin Wright because I have to answer one. And I think I just would love to see Javen get like the full runway. Yeah. Like, what does that look like? I think that guy's got such a high ceiling, and it's odd to say about a guy who's like in his 6th or 7th year in a college program, but I don't think we've ever got a chance to see exactly how high it can go. And when he has had runs of good health, he's played really good football, and he causes chaos. Like a couple of years ago, he was involved in a couple of the forced fumbles, and he was a good special teams player and all that stuff. I just think his activity in the second level of the defense and how he can cover guys as well as a former DB makes him a huge tool for John Butler and those guys to work with. Linebackers are really interesting. I mean, they've got some guys who have really played a lot of football, like Marquise Watson Trent, and Javen Wright's played his share now, and Jason McCullough is listed as a backer, but you can move all over the place. And then you've got like your young bucks like Vincent Shavers, and we can count like Willis McGahee as an outside backer coming up that's sort of out of the mix. So it's this interesting cocktail of guys who are like 4th, 5th year, 7th year guys with the 2nd year crew that's like, hey, it's my time now. And so I think that's a position group people should not move past either to talk about other things, because it's going to be pretty interesting how they put it all together. But I'll say Wright for the sake of answering, but obviously Singleton coming back's a big deal. There's just so many bodies back there. The only thing I'd say about the secondary is I hope nobody should just be comfortable that they're like, just because a guy's coming back in his 4th, 5th year, that it's theirs. I think there could be shakeup, and I think guys are really going to have to earn their keep back there.
I agree.
Love it.
Hey, we'll get you out here on this because we have an interest in the Senior Bowl, because Ty Robinson, Thomas Fidone, and Tommy Hill are all there. They released their metrics yesterday, their hand, arm. We're hand measuring season. Hand, arm, wingspan, height, weight. Ty Robinson doing work at 296. But the one that caught my eye, Thomas Fidone. So Fidone was listed in Nebraska at 6'6", 255. He was measured at the Senior Bowl 6'4", 241. So he's already begun the process to get in combine Senior Bowl type shape. Do you think, and we talked about him a lot, and even with those 2 injuries, he did play 25 games the last year. And we looked at him and we said, and I always use the reference, sometimes it's like turning a battleship in a hallway. But do you believe that as you read stuff from the people that are at the Senior Bowl and get ready to watch him on the weekend, that his best football is still ahead of him?
I think it's still possible. I think he's an incredible athlete when he's healthy, and the 2 injuries he's overcome to have that happen twice and bounce back and still be productive is an accomplishment to some degree. But I always did think like there was more out there for him, and it's a weird game to reference because it was such a blowout and you could kind of just wave your hand at it because of it. But against Indiana, I remember that game in particular, he had a few catches where he did some stuff after the football where I was like, man, that looks different than we've seen even from him in other games, where he was there was like a little explosiveness that came out in that game. So he's got to really harness that and just be consistent with it. But I've learned that there are those guys who you sort of think like, oh, they aren't going to do it at the next level. And then you look down 7 years later and they're still on a squad, or they're we've seen guys who we didn't think were the most consistent O linemen that have ended up like playing like 8 to 10 years, or they're on a practice squad 6 years later. And, Zach Sterup and guys like that who sort of turned it on when they got a chance at the next level. Nick Gates took a lot of flack when he was at Nebraska, and he's still hanging in there now. So yeah, I think he might have made a good decision here. And I know people are like, what are you doing? But like, you've had wear and tear on that body. You've put what you have on film. Now you just go show like, hey, I can test really well. He just might do that. He might test as well as some of those guys at that spot, and take your shot, and without risking further abuse to your body one more year in college. So I understand the move by him. And I think it's one of those deals where it was actually like probably the best decision for both parties involved in a way. And so in times like that, you kind of shake your head and you just wish him well. I hope he does great.
Yep. Appreciate it, BC. Have a great week.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
A lot of people at the Senior Bowl, like, he was either ahead or right behind coming out of high school, Brock Bowers in the recruiting rankings. We know the injuries here. It's fascinating to see the NFL perspective on him, that he's on the radar of a lot of teams. I'm not saying they're going to draft him because Warren of Penn State is probably the only first-round tight end. Yeah. Loveland of Michigan will go on day 2. And Helm from Texas will be a good pickup.
Yeah, but Mitchell from Notre Dame will probably go higher, early day 3. Just give a little perspective there.
But on the back end, like Luke Lachey of Iowa will get drafted, but it might be like the 6th round.
Yeah.
But to hear NFL guys that Fedoni is on the radar to watch this week in Mobile. But he's 241. He was, they always listed him like in the 250s at Nebraska.
6'6" to 6'4". I guess that's a kind of a common thing.
You shrunk a little bit.
Yeah.
You get a little bit older, you start to shrink.
Yeah. We'll see.
My grandma went from like 5'6" to 5'2" when she got like in her 70s.
You got some time, man. You got the hair, you got the height, you're good.
I'm losing it all.
Now, Ty Robinson at 296 is kind of okay, I see you.
Yeah.
Now, he's another fascinating one because like Mel Kiper loves him and I think has him as like a 6th defensive lineman.
Oof.
But that's Mel Kiper's preference, not of where he'll fall in the draft.
Yeah. It's these meetings. Not a lot of people talk about it, but these meetings at these combine, that's now granted, you got to go and you got to run the 40 and you got to do the catch and everything, but these meetings are a big deal.
Underwear Olympics.
Yeah. Well, I think Ty is a solid defensive lineman, not elite.
Yes.
So he's going to get drafted and he will probably find a home on a roster. But it's the transition of Nebraska has some nice solid guys that are draft eligible.
They don't have
like Tommy Hill will probably run well and somebody will take a flyer on him.
Yeah.
But they're solid. They need elite guys.
Dudes.
Yeah.
Like dudes. They need dudes.
Ty, though, it's hard to find those bodies, though, just in general, who can move in the way in which he will. I think it's very safe to say that Ty Robinson more than likely isn't going to be a superstar in the NFL, but I would not be surprised at all if he finds himself in the league for a very long time because of
on the
just
Chiefs.
his height, his weight, his strength, but also just his ability to get off and be a nasty 3 technique.
Didn't I see also that Nash has done pretty well at the Shrine Bowl?
I mean, Nash is a
The
guy.
Shrine
Yes.
Bowl's what, Thursday night? That game is at AT&T.
I saw a clip of him just moving dudes in the front.
He'll be playing some good
he had
football
a
there
great
for
move
once.
against SEC lineman where he kind of drug him down, where he, flipped the knuckles and went down and went right by him. Look, that's another guy where he'll probably be in the back end. Got to have good testing, got to have good meetings. But you turn on the tape and there are some really flashy Nash Hupmaker plays.
I think that's now going to be one of my fantasy league names. Flip the knuckles.
Flip the knuckles.
You're
Knuckles
on
up.
a roll today.
Knuckles up. That's what
I mean-
first thing I ever heard come out of Donovan Raiola's mouth. Knuckles up. Knuckles up. Knuckles up. Knuckles up. And then I met some of those guys.
And they gave you a knuckle up?
No. I met some of those guys. And then I go, I love your coach. And I started just screaming, knuckles up, knuckles up. And they all started dying. They thought it was so funny.
Jimmy,
No, I'm
stopped him on campus, middle of the campus.
Not true.
Bryce.
Not true.
Bryce.
I'm late for class.
Bryce.
Damn
Give me an
fans.
update. How's Teddy's rehab doing?
Not true. Not true.
We're
You got
back.
test.
We're back with more after this. All right. Coming up at the end of this segment, going into the last segment of the morning, we're going to play a game. It's a brand new game. We're going to give you an opportunity to win $100.
Heyo!
It's What's Up? We're going to play an historical play, maybe. It maybe just be a dud of a play. But you're going to have
Be
to
Lynn Elliott missing field goals?
F you.
He's not there anymore.
So that still pains
Still
me.
sing. Yeah.
It was a friggin' Colts at Arrowhead in the 90s.
15 years from now, you're going to, like, you can
Screw you, Trev Alberts.
15 years from now, you can say Cody Parkey, and I'm going to still be pissed off about it.
So we'll play What's Up?
That's because it
Next.
doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't. They
Sticks
should have
with
won
you.
that game. I was rooting for the Chiefs
Sticks
that
with
day.
you.
It really was.
Sticks with you, checking back into the game on Sunday in Madison, and you immediately turn the ball over.
Like,
Did I just drop that in there? I did. But we will play.
I keep hitting stuff.
What are we
for
doing?
This. Oh, there we go. Sorry, just getting my 1738 on Mems.
God, how good that tastes right now.
I like 1792.
We'll play this game. So we're going to play a clip at the end of the segment, and then to finish, we'll take the first caller.
Yeah.
At 402-951-1620, and then you have to tell us how this play ends. And if you are correct, you will win $100, courtesy of NRG Media in Omaha.
Omaha.
Did you guys see the clip of Saquon Barkley talking to Cam Jurgens on the sidelines Sunday in Philadelphia?
No, I did see the clip, though, of him talking to Jalen Hurts on the sidelines in Philadelphia against the Rams, where people thought that they were saying something about the Commanders. But I did not see Barkley talking to Jurgens.
I'm rooting for Saquon Barkley. I know that's wrong to say, but I have a special place in my heart for running backs.
You were firm to have a good game.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
have
mean,
to win.
Just think about this. He is like the 343rd cap hit, like the largest cap hit in the NFL. It's great because every time he does something, a Giant fan loses their wings. And he has transformed them for what they're doing this year. And maybe we have a resurgence of running back. So I like Barkley giving the middle finger every time he carries the ball. But they have a clip of him talking to Jurgens, who battled a back injury to play when they needed him on Sunday. And I'm like, Barkley is like the best teammate. You heard that with the Giants.
Yeah.
Like
it was a big,
what a good dude.
That was the story of, like, man, like a lot of cats are mad that he's gone because he had so much respect in that locker room.
But people are like, okay, Sharp, tell me why I should watch the Super Bowl. I'm like, well, you got a guy like Cam Jurgens. And then I think of a great story this past summer about Cam Jurgens. So he wants to be involved in the Lincoln community.
Yeah, why not?
He went and he wanted to belong to a country club. So in Lincoln, a very prominent and popular country club, Cam Jurgens went to, and he filled out the paperwork. And he's not a guy that says, "Do you know who I am?" He's just a normal guy who's got a terrible looking haircut right now and that god awful mustache.
I love it. That's the new look, man. He looks awesome. He looks awesome.
This is the new look.
But he's also a guy that I saw this summer in Lincoln. He had like the male version of the Daisy Dukes on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? But he's a great guy. I mean, things didn't end so well at Nebraska with his relationship with Frost, but Cam is a good dude.
Sure.
Man, and Cam loves Nebraska. So he wants to be involved in the Lincoln community and put some roots down. So he went to a local country club, filled out all the paperwork, everything you got to do to belong to this nice country club, and left. Like was told there's no vacancy.
Wow.
He went to another country club in Lincoln because he was like, I kind of like to belong to this one. They basically gave him the cold shoulder.
Wow.
The person did not realize what the reading the application. He went to Hillcrest and they're like, come on. Then that country club that kind of slow played him, somebody looked at the application, recognized the name, got a hold of him, and he's like, sorry.
We messed up. We screwed the pooch here.
I'm already at a different country club.
It's funny. Wow. So if you go back to that 2017 Eagles team, right? So they have Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz was having an MVP season.
Mm-hmm.
But even like during the season, they were like, hey, we got to run the ball more. Like you had a whole offense. You even had wide receivers on that team. And you had some veteran wide receivers on the team. Like they had Alshon Jeffrey. I think Torrey Smith was on that team at one point. They had Ertz. They had Aguilar, who was younger at the time. But they even had like I remember the story watching them. They had pass catchers being like, dude, we gotta run the ball.
Well, remember at the beginning of the year, they were rolling and then Wentz got hurt.
Yeah. And so they're like, hey, we got to run this ball. Like, this is our identity.
Yeah.
And they had a great offensive line. They had Johnson, they had Brooks, they had Kelsey. And they ran the ball with three different dudes. They had LeGarrette Blount, they had Jay Ajayi, and Corey Clement. And Clement was a rookie at the time. And I think they combined for like 1,500 yards like on the ground. They ran the ball a ton. And they like backs. They put it like they had a Wendell Smallwood too, who's like he was a little scat back.
They don't have any running backs that have normal names.
No,
they have a Gainwell, they have a Barkley, they have Saquon right now.
Will Shipley, even that's a little bit like
Whatever happened to Anthony Toney?
But you look at this team and how they're made.
Wilbur Montgomery.
It's very and you go back to Jeff Scotland and like how incredible of a offensive line coach he is, but it's a little bit similar in the fact that like this is a team that like Nick Foles and Carson Wentz they were serviceable quarterbacks. I mean, serviceable enough for Foles to go and win the Super Bowl. But that whole team's attitude was like, dude, we're going to run the ball. And it's the same thing here. You got A.J. Brown, and it's just the little things, right? When Saquon scores a touchdown, you see Brown, and he's got a big smile on his face, and he's going up to him, and he's patting him on the head, and he's typically the first one to help him celebrate. And it's just funny how 8 years later, we're at the same point where the Eagles are adopting a similar identity to get themselves to win a Super Bowl with the idea of we're going to run this ball. We have Jalen Hurts, who's a top quarterback. We have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and we have Dallas Goedert, who all respectively are in the upper echelon of their position groups. But we're going to put this ball on the ground, and we're going to smack you, and we're going to hit you, and we're going to do it. And now we have this generational horse who's just going to take the ball and run it to the end zone on the very first play of the game and get this crowd absolutely into it. So
what I'm garnering here from your comment is your stack of greenbacks. You're going to go with Philadelphia 2.5 and the total over of 49.5. Is that what I'm sensing here?
I haven't really thought about where we're going to be. I like the over. I like the over. I think it's gonna be close in terms of the over under. Like I think it's going to be a 27-24 football game.
I mean, all Chiefs games are basically. They're not boring.
No, the Chiefs are. This is why the people don't like the Chiefs, because they're not the Cobra. They're the boa constrictor. Like you're attracted to the Cobra because the Cobra is like the boa constrictor just like takes its time, takes 60 minutes to squeeze you to death. We don't like 60 minutes. We're a society that likes in and out, and we like to be amused, and we like to go flash and dash, and we like to go ooh. So that's why you like the Cobra over the boa constrictor. I mean, choose your snake that you'd like to die from.
It's hard.
Kenny Stabler?
It's hard to bet, and this is going to be a weird statement. It's hard to bet against Steve Spagnuolo.
That's not weird.
Yeah,
that's
baby.
true.
You'd think I'd
That's
say,
fact.
it's hard to bet against Mahomes,
baby.
or it's hard to bet against Andy Reid. It's Spags, man. He just
changed everything.
He just kind of scares me, and it's just like, how sicko is that? Where he had that, he had that blitz package against Allen in his back pocket the entire game, and he knew it was there, and they knew what they were going to do, and he was just waiting and waiting. When am I going to pull this out? When am I going to confuse the heck out of him? When am I going to use this thing that I know I'm going to get an impact play of some sort out of it? And he got his perfect moment. 4th and 5, end of the game, and he pulled the rabbit out of the hat.
Went against tendency.
Right? That's scary. And then so the New Heights podcast, I like to listen to it as well. There was a moment, I think it was in the preseason, where Jason Kelsey was like, the playbook is overrated. Like, like I haven't opened up a playbook in years, right? Like we just go and we got, and you understand him from a bit, like I'm sure they've had similar protections and similar calls that he's been making for years now under Stoughton. But Travis Kelce goes, dude, what are you talking about? Like we have like 200 new plays, 300 new plays. We have so many new plays. And you go back to that Mahomes touchdown that he ran for, there was a report that they had never seen that before. That the Bills on tape watch all that tape, and they never seen them in that diamond package that Pat Mahomes just takes the ball and he runs it into the end zone. And it's just like that moment. That moment scared me too, because I'm listening to this New Heights pod where Kelsey's like, we got 300 brand new plays this year. And then I'm hearing that we had no clue that ever happened before. And you don't think Andy Reid, Coach Reid, is going to pull out some tricks out of his book that the Eagles haven't seen on
With an
tape
extra
with
week
the
to
athletes
prepare.
that they have? I mean, it's a scary game to bet.
The Eagles don't have a chance.
The scariest game to bet is when there's two just great teams
Well,
playing each other.
I will give you another little tip. Nobody that has ever lost to Kirk Cousins during the season has won the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's a nugget.
Check week 2.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Atlanta beat Philadelphia.
Go back to that play. What if Saquon caught the ball? What if you caught the ball and beat the Falcons?
Time for a little money grab for y'all. First caller, you are in to try and guess how this play ends. 402-951-1620. You have a chance to win $100. This is what we have labeled as What's Up Next. Jimmy's going to play a clip. It may be just a September game on a playground. It may be a big game, but you're going to listen to the clip, and then you have to tell us in detail how this play ends. And if you do, you're going to win $100. First caller, 402-951-1620. You finish what this play is.
They're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone. 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone. Dwight Clark.
Dad says, worst birthday ever.
I mean, Ed Too Tall Jones said to this day, he thought that Montana was just throwing the ball away. But in the back of the end zone, found Dwight Clark.
Been a penalty back.
Do you know why that game has so much significance?
Because we got to hear Vince Scully doing football with
his
Hank Stram.
last game.
Because
Oh, that was his last?
That was his last game, yep.
Whoa.
Before he signed with NBC to do baseball because he was vying for the number 1, which went to Pat Summerall and John Madden, and they were okay. And so he left, and so he went out on a high note.
the significance of that game is that there is a future Hall of Famer in the crowd there watching that game
A
who
lot of
talks
future Hall
about
of
how
Famers in
that
the field.
watching that play led to his love of football, which led him to end up playing quarterback at the University of Michigan and then the New England Patriots and then the Tampa
What
Bay
if Drew
Buccaneers.
Pearson had gone all the way on that next possession?
Tom Brady would have
Tom
never
Brady-
played quarterback.
I do
Better
believe
receiver.
that there is a picture of a young Tom found somewhere in that just in the archives of just him there with his father in the Bay. Tom Brady, no one wants to talk about that. Tom Brady very, very nearly was a San Francisco 49er.
Also,
And
old
not
if he was
just
at that
like-
game.
There was some rumblings of he might get traded to San Francisco and Garoppolo was going to they were going to move on because there was an offseason where Tom and Kraft and Belichick all hated each other.
Yeah.
I think that was 2018 or maybe 2017, 2018, around their year. There was a really bad offseason. His trainer, Alex Guerrero, got all involved in it with the TB12. That was great. That was prime NFL offseason. We got nothing to talk about in the heat of June type deal.
Our winner?
Steven.
Steven.
Steven's our winner. Congratulations. We'll play again tomorrow.
$100. We'll do it tomorrow. It
It'll
doesn't
be a
always,
different play.
Yeah, it also isn't always. You just have to roll the dice. It's not always like a great finish.
No.
Not
No.
the end of an 89-yard drive.
It literally
could be-
comes from my head. So if you've listened to the show the past couple of years, you know that could go anywhere.
It
I
could-
could find a regular season game from the 70s.
It could be Gary and I just playing football in the backyard from last week. I mean, that could be that too. Jimmy
First
announcing.
down and 10 at the 35-yard line. There are 2 wide receivers to the top. Now Johnson is in motion, comes to the
They're not
bottom
going to snap the
left.
ball here, Gary. Look at the play, Gary. They're not snapping the ball. Look at the body language, Gary. Look at the body language.
That was there was so much about that throw in that game because all of a sudden Joe Montana was cool, and the late Dwight Clark. That's the defining moment of his career.
Tom
Yes.
Landry plays prevents
was
you
it-
from winning.
Was it Berman that was on the field,
Yeah.
or was it Tom Mees?
No, it was Berman.
Was it
yeah.
Berman?
Right away on
By
the
the
field.
way, man,
I know.
Berman looks a little rough.
Yeah.
He
mean-
he interviewed Mahomes Kelsey on Sunday,
Yeah.
and then he does that show with he used to do it with Tom Jackson, which was a must watch.
Always.
Now he does it with Booger. And it was after the Chiefs Bills game was over. I was looking for more. I went to the NFL Network. Come on, they didn't have
Really?
they had Chris Myers.
Wow.
No, yeah. And then I went to ESPN and they had Berman and Booger were doing the highlights, and I'm like, Berman looks a little haggard. So we'll
too
do
many,
this.
too
again
many
tomorrow.
Canadian aspirins.
Hell yes.
I don't know. Played golf in an event in Naples, Florida. Celebrity Scramble, and Berman was in my group.
Oh,
He's a
that's awesome.
sweater. He
Really?
sweats a lot.
Yeah.
Lots of sweat.
Checks out. You know,
Lots of sweat.
we would go to a bar for Monday Night Football. Me and a couple buddies back in Chicago. It was how we all met up and got together throughout the week. And we 1 week it was the fastest 3 minutes, and we loved. We would all we would be hanging out, but then we would pause and we
Only
would watch
2.5
the
for a
fastest 3
portion.
minutes because I love that. One time at the bar, they turned it off. They put music on during the fast 3 minutes.
Ooh.
We were like, hey, no. We got them to put it back on. We're
Bad
like, we
bar.
gotta.
That
we
dude's
got-
my
What?
brother.
What?
Sad news coming out of Lincoln this morning for all of you fans of McDonald's and the McRib. Roger Mandigo has passed away at the age of 85. He was a distinguished professor. He was later in life a emeritus of animal science and food science and technology, who is the person that created the technology and the process for the McRib.
And
so
Nebraska?
People
Wow.
people will credit him as the McRib was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. But he has said many times in interviews that he did not create the McRib. McDonald's did. He just created the combination of the meat products.
Nah,
He's still its dad.
he created the McRib.
Yeah.
We're gonna claim it. I love McRib. I think the McRib is underrated.
I think the McRib is garbage.
I've never
I like a
eaten
McRib.
one.
Onions and pickles, a tangy barbecue sauce. You know, they still have it in Luxembourg, Germany. Do you know that? They have it year round.
You know what? That's great. Those people over there must like eating a shoe. That's what the McRib tastes like, is a shoe. Have you ever eaten your shoe?
But
Eating your shoe, just pour a little barbecue sauce on there and
I was
go,
about to
why would
say-
I pay money to go to McRib?
Not
I
since
got,
the mid-80s.
I got some dunks here I can just gnaw on. McRib is not. McRib, you know what? That was a great
want-
marketing ploy that they're like, hey, the McRib, we're going to take it, we're going to give it to you, then we're going to take it away. And people are going to be like, oh, I kind of miss them. Oh, it's coming back. You know what? They have fooled you. The McRib is.
what is worse?
If people only knew what was in the McRib, they knocked the hot dog. The hot dog unfairly gets knocked because of what's in it. If they only knew what was in the McRib, and I don't care if it was created in Lincoln or not, you would be like, whoa, no wonder I'm on the back nine.
Yeah.
Because I've eaten a lot of McRibs.
Look
What's
at chicken
worse?
nuggets and how they're made.
What's worse?
They're the same, actually. The McRib and the stuff in the McRib and the dinosaur nugget, very similar.
No,
I've studied.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Roger told me.
because the
Many
McNuggets
times.
did a how it's made. They did a how it's made.
Oh, then it's gotta be true.
McDonald's chicken McNuggets, and they went to the Dyson factory, and I watched it, and it's legitimate chicken. They have a legitimate operation where they're cutting off chickens and they're cutting off certain pieces
Whoa.
and they're throwing it into a grinder, and then they grind it up, and then they put it. They have a thin, base, and then they freeze it. It's great. You should watch it. It's great how it's made. I love chicken McNuggets. I love McDonald's. I have to be careful though. I get a Big Mac once every 6 months because I love a Big Mac, and I'm afraid I'm gonna relapse because at one point in my life I ate one Big Mac a week.
College.
Nope, high school.
Oh,
Just one a week?
Just one a week?
One Big Mac a week.
I could do that
was
once a
so-
week.
I think I
Twice
thought
a
the story was going to go you would eat one a day.
That's what I thought too.
No.
Okay, because
I ate Chipotle though like 4 times a week.
I ate it last night.
High
And I'm
school.
now 5 pounds less. Discuss.
I love Chipotle. What's your favorite fast food place?
I'm a mixture.
Yeah.
By the way, and by the way, it'd be warm out here. Record weather, record warmth.
I
It's the
don't
last
think
day
we're
of
gonna get
temperature
there.
Tuesday. So we had like
Yeah.
back-to-back Tuesdays where it's 0, and so runs it's the last temperature Tuesday. It's
Yeah.
always a sad moment in the winter when you get to the last temperature Tuesday, and you
So-
actually have to spend money.
Baseball starts next week then, right?
Hell yeah, it does.
Yeah, they're reporting, right?
Hey, the trucks. The trucks got to go first, but we're close to pitchers and catchers reporting. We're
Oh,
very,
it's actually
very
gone
close.
down. When at the beginning of the show, the high was going to be 56. Right now, I'm looking at 55.
Get another app. I say 61.
TV meteorologists are like, this is going to be a record day. Going to be 60.
the whole week.
I think they should just lie and just say, yeah, it is 60.
And then we get a cold front in next Monday when we're back down.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
That'll do it for the show. Big thanks to Sam McEwen, Brian Christopherson. All of you will play the game for a chance for you to win $100 again tomorrow.
It's going to get cold.
We'll be in at 6 with another edition of Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone.